Let's get the meeting going. It won't be as short as
All right.
you'd like it to be.
Yeah,
All right. Good evening, everyone. This is the Hideout Utah Town Council rescheduled regular meeting and public hearings being held on February 28th, 2024. This meeting is being broadcast on YouTube and Zoom, in addition to live and in person at the town hall. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to take roll, and then I'm going to make a quick announcement, and then we'll see what else we're going to do. So, Bob Nadelberg.
I am here.
Present. Good. Chris Byer, are you present?
Here.
Thank you. In the room with me is Councilman Ralph Severini and Councilman Jonathan Dunn. So we're up to 4. Now, I don't know if Carol's in yet, because I know she's juggling stuff. So she may join us a bit later. But we do have an appropriate forum. I've heard comments from multiple folks on the council that the preparation of the package for this meeting was late in coming and didn't give you sufficient time to study the documents. And I agree with that completely, and I understand completely. So if you want to skip something, we will push it to the meeting in March because you haven't had time to process it. And there's no pushback as a result of that from me. We promised we're going to do better, and we haven't done better. So as far as I'm concerned, there's a couple things that we really do need to talk about, and I'll ask that your forgiveness for those. But other than that, anything you want to push is perfectly okay with me.
Chris has her hand up.
I'm sorry?
Chris has her hand up.
Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, thanks for recognizing me. I just wanted to call your attention that at least 2 council members are not available on March 14th. So I would ask that we try to figure out a date for the March meeting.
Okay, we can do that. I'll make a note, make sure we come back to that before the end, that we pick a date in March that works for.
Yeah, because I think we might be pushing things to a date certain possibly, right? And then we have to know what we should know what our meeting is, our next meeting.
That's a valid point as well. All right, well, let's take a moment here and look at the calendar and see what. Is Carol one of the people not available in March?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know her calendar.
Right.
Well, we do. I think she mentioned it. I think it has to be later than the 25th of March for for us to be available. So that's your constraint, not the 26th or later. I think if we make it early in March, I don't believe Carol is not available after the first week or so of March.
Doesn't mean we're gonna end up, I mean, Bob, I don't know where you are. Ralph, I don't know where you are.
New York. Yeah.
So there's probably, we're gonna end up with different shortages that week, Chris. So I guess we gotta decide.
On the sign-in sheet.
I mean, Carol's not available till late in March. When are you, who's the other one that's not available on the 14th?
That's
Yeah.
me. That's me.
Okay, so when would you be back?
25th.
Also?
I can't meet on
also-
the 25th. I can meet after the 25th.
Ralph's not available that week. Jonathan, what's your schedule like?
Pretty flexible at this point in time.
Bob, what's your schedule like for the last week in March?
I am on call that week. I may or may not be available. I will, if I am available, I'll be here.
Polly, what do you think? I mean, we got two out on the scheduled date. We have two out potentially on the proposed available date for the two that are out in the beginning of March.
Ultimately, it's the council's call, but I think that if you're gonna have people missing on both of similar numbers of people missing on both, it's better to just keep it on the regularly scheduled night just for consistency, but by all means, it's up to the council.
I could add just one minor thing. If you're thinking about it looks like the bloom is being continued to the date certain on the 14th. My last communication with Jenny indicated that they still needed more time. She thought that would probably be tight. They didn't think they'd probably be able to make that date. So if you are holding it for them, I don't think they'll be ready. They haven't submitted anything yet. And so they probably won't be ready then. We'll probably go to a later date anyway.
That was my number one concern, Thomas, but not the only one, but yes, number one concern.
So could we schedule it earlier in March?
Really, for next week.
If we're gonna push a lot of it, possibly, then
Yeah, cover the agenda items, circle back with Jenny and Ryan on the date that, you know, is very much toward the end.
Chris, how does the first week of March, next week look for you? Are you gone then too?
No, it looks good.
Jonathan,
I think I can do that one.
Ralph, next week? I think I'm here all next week. Bob, next week, you flying?
See, I can give you the 5th, the 6th, and I guess I could probably do the 7th.
I can do any of those.
I'm here, so. I think we're good.
Okay,
what about Polly?
Polly, Thomas, where are you for next week on the 5th, 6th or so?
Those are both fine for me.
I'm good with the exception of the 5th. I mean, I could make it work, but I have a conflict. If it went to the 6th or 7th, that'd be ideal. But yeah, those work.
6th, 7th work for me. Chris, 6th, 7th works for you.
The
So-
7th is a little better for me, actually. There's something hidden on my calendar. 7th is better for me.
All right, I think Thomas, or Bob, you said you tied on the 7th maybe.
Oh. I can not go to this other meeting. It's not the end of the world.
Wait, is that an option for all of us? Just kidding.
So let's look for the Wednesday, the 6th for the March meeting. We still have time to notice it. I don't think there's anything in 10 days that isn't already on the agenda that we can continue, so. So March 6th, we need to put that on at 6 p.m. Yes, that work for everybody?
Yeah, that works.
Okay,
Polly, is the CUP considered a land use? Oh, it
CMP,
is, but, yeah, but it is for planning commission, right, not council.
I think she's thinking about the CUP for the fire station, but that stops at planning commission.
right.
I'm wrong, Polly. Yeah.
So, yeah, is that, right, the CUP has to go before the planning commission, assuming that language passes tonight. And that won't be until the third week and, right, the 21st, is that? Yeah, it's the
that's the one
21st.
I'm gonna ask, that's the one I'm gonna ask that we do look at no matter what, because we need to keep that moving. one of two things I'm gonna answer right there, and more if you're willing, but. So we have council, 6 PM, Wednesday, March 6th, next week. Okay, Jim in a minute.
So the 6th, right?
Yeah, March 6th. Okay, thank you, Chris, for bringing that up. Thank you all for your patience, while we sort through that. I've done roll call, and don't know if you had a chance to see the minutes. If you need more time, we can delay those. I just need to know. Anybody feel they need more time to process the minutes from January 15th meeting?
No, my.
Chris, Bob, you're okay, right?
So one thing I would point out before we get into a vote for that
Yeah.
is the minutes reflect that GCD is quote donating. And they're not so much donating land as they are allowing the county fire department to use the land for 3 years. And so I would ask that the minutes reflect that a change saying that GCD is not donating the land to the town, rather they are allowing the fire department to use that land for 3 years under a written contract.
Right.
Good pickup, Jonathan, thank you.
What page is that on, I'm sorry? Oh, here it is.
There's going to be a direct agreement between GCD and the fire department.
It's private land, so it's between the fire department and GCD.
Exactly.
Ralph, comments on the minutes?
I looked them over, so, good catch, and nothing further on that.
Bob, Chris?
Yeah, I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary on that.
If that's the case, then I'd like a motion to approve the minutes with the modification regarding the fire district's use of the land from GCP to be incorporated.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second from Jonathan? From Ralph? Okay. Bob, how do you vote?
Yes,
Chris?
Yes,
Ralph? Yes. And John?
Yes.
Jonathan, sorry. Okay, thank you. Any follow-up items from these minutes that we just approved that came to mind? I don't recall seeing anything.
I didn't see anything outstanding, usually I'll try to catch that now. I think we're doing some follow-ups here.
We've put up some flashing lights, on Shoreline Drive. We have new signs that are due any day now to come in, speed control, though Dan will be getting those up as soon as they come in. So we're continuing to work on these the issues around the Shoreline Drive, speed controls. There is a street light underway. I think they're pouring the base for that, this week, this coming week. So we're making some progress there.
Where's that light?
It's gonna go at the state park, up right when you come to Shoreline where the service road is. There's gonna be a street light put in. Sure. And like, remind people that you're coming into the neighborhood. So,
Maybe, do you think we'll have time, well, next meeting, not, it's too close, but maybe the meeting after that, we have an official update, so any of the folks could
yeah,
get on it.
Yeah, we can put that on.
That's it.
but yeah, we are doing work, and the flashing lights are great. What Dan's done, I think, is great. They're quite visible even during the day. That's the follow-up items, then we'll move on. The next item is public input. For any item that people want to talk about, it is not on the agenda tonight. Because there's items on the agenda that are in public hearings, which means there'll be public input for those separately. So we have, for those of you on the phone, I don't know if you can see in the video, because it's not, I don't see it in my version. We do have people in the council room besides the council. And we have folks here in the room, so if you guys have anything you want to say, in public input, just raise your hands and address that. Anybody on the phone, raise your hands. I see Brett is up, so go ahead, Brett.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'll keep it very brief. It's not on an agenda item, but it's related to prior agenda items related to some traffic safety and speed control. I had a good conversation this afternoon with Thomas Eddington on a different topic, and we talked about the curve on Longview just to the, I believe it'd be west of Lasso Trail, the West Lasso Trail intersection with Longview, where it curves down towards the Golf Shack, as we call it.
Yeah.
That corner this winter, we had one pickup go off the edge, had to be hauled out with a tow truck, and another car in that area went off to the other side of the road, not the golf course side, but the other side. And routinely, people are going well over the 20, in my estimation, over 30, coming up and down, especially at that corner. So I asked the council to consider another one of like the speed signs, like on the entranceway, that shows you how fast you're going and tells you to slow down. That, I think that's one of the effectives, or other measures, and potentially a guardrail on that corner. The truck was lucky they didn't hit much and did too much damage, but it's a downhill, hard corner, and they did go off there. It was an icy morning, but anyway, just ask for that and more awareness about the speed on Longview. Thanks.
Thanks, Brett. That was a good comment. That is a tough corner. I've plowed it myself, so I know. So we'll take that and take a look at that and see what we can do. We do have signage coming. They do reflect the speed. I don't know that they say thank you like the current ones, but we do have some of those to go in, and that's a logical place to put it, particularly, I think, even more so on the downhill side, because if you hit that too fast, you are skidding, as you said. And we'll look at where a guardrail would make sense and how to do that. So thanks. I'll bring it up.
I do actually see more cars speeding actually on the way up, because they're accelerating up the hill, and they just keep accelerating as they round what would be a left-hand corner. So, but both directions. Yeah. Appreciate the help. Thanks.
Thanks. Good message there. Anything else for public input?
Hey, Mayor, can I offer a comment on that? Yeah, thanks, Brett, for bringing that up. I was the one who reported it to Wasatch County, to the Sheriff's Department. It took them a solid 30 minutes to get up here from Heber, because there was, no officers were located up here. So we did have 30 minutes at least when there was nobody, trying to get people to slow down. That day was a black ice day. And yeah, the guy was going too fast, but I saw subsequent to that, a number of other vehicles fishtail down there. So I think it's possibly a combination of additional signage, or also for Public Works to just really focus on that hill for any kind of salting. I think there are still times when, no matter what Public Works does, that there still could develop an ice condition on the roadway. So it is dangerous. Only one truck spun out of control and ended up backwards and off the embankment, but it actually is quite dangerous in the winter.
Chris, thank you. Yeah. And unfortunately, because it's been warm during the days and then it drops at night, we get melt across the road during the day, and even with salt down, and then at night it freezes up and makes it slick. So I'll talk with Daniel and see if we can come up with some thoughts, maybe some sand instead of salt, something that give it some grip, and I'll get him on the signage part up there as well. So,
yeah, and just so you know, Mayor, I did call Daniel that morning. I had his cell phone. I woke him up because he had been up plowing all night. I woke him up and he said, they couldn't get a public works person out there also for at least 30 minutes or longer because they were coming from Heber.
Yeah, I mean, depends time in the morning, because, you know, the night guys go off and the day guys start, at, 8 o'clock-ish, so. Just kind of depends, but we don't have 24-hour coverage. We can talk about that, if that's something the community wants us to think about, but.
I mean, maybe
cost
there's a
was-
sign, like a road may be icy, slow down
Yeah.
or something. There's probably some standard road sign that's available to put, especially for people going down the hill, because that's, I think, where people will lose traction on the way up. That happens a lot, but it's a lot less dangerous than losing traction on the way down.
Okay. Thanks. Ralph, you had a comment?
Yeah, also in the same area, we got one of the residents on Lasso Trail, who lives near the construction that's going on in Longview, slightly up the hill there from University Longview, to Lasso. And there's a big crane up there, just that, maybe we can keep a closer eye on that, because she sent me a picture of the damage when they moved that crane. That's an active construction site, and we've seen some poor practices, I would call it, or questionable practices in some of these constructions. You can't even pass that crane sometimes when it's moving out and you're going under it. So there's a couple of places on Longview that's, that are just not very safe, and that's a real indication. And it was,
Can you forward that?
yeah, I'll send it to Alicia.
Send it to me.
Oh, okay.
There's a Dan. In the meantime, yeah, you're right, Ralph. I've already had the sheriff be spending time up at Soin Hawk for the same reasons. That place is impossible with all the construction that's going on. I'm told that it's somewhat better, but, there's still, continues to be a lot of construction problems there.
You get two houses there where almost you have a half a lane to get through, so, that's tough to navigate. And on top of that, I wouldn't want anything falling on me, so.
Well, we have, the good news is we have one candidate, Public Works, accept a job with us, so we're gonna have one more in. That'll help. I'm trying to get two, because we're, in snow events, we're half loaded, everybody's driving. So they're not doing other stuff, they're just pushing snow. So we don't have anyone to go around and yell at people on that stuff, so when we get another staffer in, that will help. So we can step up our
Yelling.
Well, you can deputize me up. I don't mind getting out and yelling at them.
I would do the same.
I can't deputize
I
you
know.
because I'm not, it's part of the sheriff's department, but I can, have you assigned as the code enforcement officer, so you can fight people if you'd like. We can take that offline.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks Ralph for that. I'll,
Yeah, just to save, more of a safety.
No, it's even safety.
It's, nobody wants to.
Construction.
And on top of that, we know.
Now, I mean, what's.
Okay. Anything else in public input? All right, I'm gonna close public input. Next item is section 6, which is continued public hearings, which are being continued to March 14th, but now we'll have to reshape that date to March 7th. March 6th.
Are these being continued at the proponent's request or ours?
Yes, if there's.
I just wanted that for the record.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Good point. At their request, and my guess is they will ask for another continuation for the 6th. Per what Thomas had to say, but they're being continued to March 6th.
Do we want a motion?
Yeah, let's get a motion to adjust the public hearing date certain from March 14th to March 6th. Someone want to make that motion?
I'll make it. Well, second.
6th, motion Ralph, second Jonathan. Okay. Bob, how do you feel about that?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes,
Thank you. Jonathan?
Yes.
And Ralph, yes. Okay, now we move to the section of public hearings. Again, there's, more than four, just four items on there. And again, if anybody on council, and all it takes is one vote as far as I'm concerned, doesn't feel that they're, had time to review the information, then we will move it. The first one is a consideration of a proposed lot, combination, Hideout Canyons lots 41 and 42. I don't hear any objections, so Thomas, you want to kick that one off?
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. Alicia, are you able to share your screen? Or
Yeah, yeah, stuff right now. You're not able to share still, right?
Yeah, I can check.
Oh, sorry, I'll let you try
I don't know what I'm sharing though. Is it in the package?
the packet, yeah.
You done?
No, I just took us offline.
Yeah, you try.
Let me go on terms.
that'd be number one.
I got that. Be shutting it down.
Is there a picture or anything you want to show before you get to the resolution, or is that after?
Actually, Mayor, could you go up just a couple of pages, or is that the first thing, Alicia?
That's the
That's
first
the first
thing.
thing, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She put the resolution before the exhibit.
Why don't, Mayor, if you don't mind going down just another page or two, we'll start with the staff report and then we'll work back up to this.
Okay.
There you go. That'll just make it a little easier for you guys. So this is for a lot combination of lot 41 and 42 in Hideout Canyon subdivision. It's Hideout Canyon subdivision phases 2 and 4 as it's been recorded. Each of these lots is about half an acre. And
Thomas, sorry. Is there a road name for these lots somewhere?
this is on Lasso.
Say that again?
It's on Lasso Trail.
Lasso Trail, thank you.
So these
Yeah,
two
we-
lots, there is an image on here that'll help, but these two lots are right south of the golf cart path that takes you into that hole that's kind of between the houses that make up Lasso Court and Longview. The proposed total size of the new lot that is recommended would be 46,331.7 square feet, I should say. That is not acres. That is about an acre, just a little bit more. This is in the resort specially planned area. And there,
So acres is wrong, right?
that is wrong. That should say square feet. Yeah, thank you. It's about 1.1 acre. With regard to setbacks, the setbacks are set pursuant to the DRC and the MDA. Really, the setbacks are per the plat. The front, the sides, and the rear are all essentially 10-foot wide public utility easements. Building heights are, as noted, as set by the DRC. There is an existing house on this property that has been approved and built. You could scroll down to that aerial. That might help so everybody can see that, yep, those are the two lots right there. Where that arrow points is the lot line between the two lots. So you can see there's a house on the northern lot, and that's lot 42, and then existing lot 41 is the lot that is proposed to be combined with that one. If you scroll up, or you can leave it there, I can just walk through some of the analysis. So generally, it appears that lot 41 would be used as open space. The applicant confirmed with the Planning Commission last night that that is the case, but there is a recommendation that they would like to add an addition to the house, to potentially add an addition to the house sometime in the future. And so that is the reason for the lot combination. it is worth noting that that lot line does again have a 10-foot public utility easement to the north and a 10-foot public utility easement to the south. My research and coordination with the town engineer, looking through the GIS records, indicate that there are no existing utilities there, so that can probably be vacated pretty easily, but that would be confirmed with the applicant surveyor and our town engineer in the field, because some of our GIS information isn't 100% thorough, so we would want to confirm that before any recordation. If there is existing utilities there, that public utility easement would have to remain in place, which would certainly make it difficult for the to expand or put on an addition to their house. So that would be something that they would want to
But it'd
consider.
have to be rerouted at their expense.
Right. That's true. That could be rerouted. In my report, I did note that no additional square feet are requested. If you scroll down into the planning overview, or you can leave it here, that's a mistake because we learned on Monday night at the planning commission meeting, again, they do wish to, it's number 4 if you go down just a little bit further, Mayor. That is not correct. They do wish to expand the house pursuant to the HOA, the master HOA and the design review committee. I think they're allowed to expand it up to about 125% of the originally allowed footprint for the existing lot that has been built upon. So they could get about another 25%. They'd have to adhere to all the requirements of the master HOA, DRC, et cetera. And again, number 6 there is a condition outlines the public utility easement that could be abandoned if there's no utilities there, otherwise would have to remain. They'd work around it or reroute it. Planning Commission favorably recommended this on Monday night, and this is up for review by you all and potential adoption. And if you have any questions, I'm here. And also the owner of the property, the applicant, Miss Allen, is also on Zoom.
So I have a question. I noticed that they have 6 months to record the plat. Is there a reason why that's so long?
That's what our ordinance allows for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, you'd be surprised. A lot of people don't make it within the 6 months, especially for the larger subdivision. So it sounds like a lot of time, but by the time it goes through review, final CAD drawings, back and forth between the town and the applicant and the applicant's engineers, et cetera, it takes a fair amount of time to hone in and get that right in detail. For a lot combination, super easy, but sometimes for subdivisions, they don't quite make it and they have to ask you all for an extension. We do have a resolution that's here. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, any downs, I mean, I don't see any downside, but are there any downsides? Are there any risks here that we should be concerned about from your view?
I don't think so. You end up with, I mean, in effect, you end up with more open space in that particular area because they can't do a full build out on the lot. There were some folks at the planning commission and some members of the public last night that commented that it could reduce the property taxes because the assessment may go down on that property because there is not a full single family house being developed on it. That I guess you could argue is a negative or a risk factor, but the code does allow them to combine the lots. There's no maximum lot size allowance, and so it is permitted by the code.
And I think that in addition to the house might change the value of the assessment on the house as well, which might increase the tax.
It could increase it on the existing one lot and maybe slightly lower on the other lot. Maybe it almost evens out when they're combined. That's a good point.
Hey, Thomas, sorry,
Go ahead, Chris.
can you go back to the map?
Thomas can't.
Or Mayor, can you go back to the map? I have a question for Thomas. So what's on the other side of lot 42? Is that, golf course? Or?
Are you on the other side of Lasso Trail?
No, lot 41, sorry, lot 41. Golf course, or is there?
I think that is the golf course property. That is a parcel that encompasses some of the holes for the golf course.
Does it go all the way? Yeah, I think that's the T, right? It goes beyond. Okay. The reason
think
I was asking,
To the
the reason
south.
the reason I was asking is I just wanted to see where the BOR land was, or any public land, if it had any, if it was contiguous in any way to that
I
corner.
think it's just one lot away. I think that house you see to the south, 20, what's that number? 20, right there.
Mhm.
If you go just below that line, then I think you're in the BOR, the state land.
So I don't know if we would ever be able to negotiate this, but it is not outside the realm of possibilities that there would be the ability to perhaps do some trail development on BOR land. That's again, state park managed probably, or maybe it's not, but anyway, my point is, if we're thinking of future ability to get to that, should it be accessible for public recreation, is there something we could stipulate maybe in that public utility easement that is between the south end of 41 and then 40? If such a time, again, there's a lot of ifs, but we always have that problem of how do we connect to recreation? Can we possibly, could there possibly in the future be an opportunity to get a easement across, something far away from the house, but through there, if for some reason we could get through to the golf course corner there and then off into the public space.
You could do that. So that property line between existing 41 and 40, just below it, will have a 10-foot public utility easement. That is essentially the setbacks in this particular development. And so we could stipulate in a plat note that could also be used as a potential trail access easement.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's what I'm looking for, public access easement to any future open space, something like that.
Yep, we can do that, and we've done that in the past for public utility easements. We've ensured, typically for public utility easements in many HOAs, especially if there's pods of development, kind of the open space, the common area around that. Typically, the town engineer will dedicate all of that as public utility easement, and we do allow trails in it. So that is not uncommon. We've done that many times in the past. So that's a good condition of approval, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't know, but I would hate to, like we've done with so many platted areas already, we've just painted ourselves into a corner where we just can't get out of them to recreate. And I think that's one of our challenges here, is trying to get, from neighborhoods in Hideout into, the appropriate open space, if there are legitimate and approved recreation opportunities. So I'd like to see if we could stipulate something like that, just to make sure someday in the future it might be able to happen. I don't know if Miss Allen is willing to do something like that, or if as you mentioned, that public utility easement can be used for something like a 10-foot trail access, just whatever, just a way to get down. And I think she has her hand raised.
I'll get to the public input in just a second.
Yeah.
I understand.
Oh,
She's the applicant. Okay, yes. So anyway, that's my feedback. The other bit of feedback is I know that lot. I actually looked at that lot years and years ago. I think there was some, I'm just going to call it dumping because I don't know what other word to use, but some soil was imported into there. I'm going to say accidentally a few years ago. And then I think it was overseeded, possibly seeded with that hydroseed. I was just wondering if there would be some perhaps nicer landscaping done in that area that was already disturbed in that lot. Or if it's just gonna, because that's not the natural condition. I know you mentioned, I think there's in here, keeping the existing landscaping in its natural condition, which I think is a good thing, but just part of that, as evidenced in the photo, that image that you're showing, all that brown area, yeah, that's where the soil import, I think, happened, and the hydroseeding happened.
And that's a good point. We do always require that native vegetation be preserved or replanted. And so I'm sure Miss Allen could speak to that. I don't know the details of that soil repository issue, so maybe she could speak to that.
Sure, I am familiar with that. That was, the prior owner also owned a property on, Forevermore Court. And when they were building on their property on Forevermore, they needed to move their dirt, so they moved it onto their property on Lasso. So that's how that happened. And that was done, according to them, with the approval of
It
the
was.
community.
It
So,
was.
in terms of, I mean, I certainly would want it to look better if we had control over it, because it is, I agree, a little bit has kind of affected the natural vegetation. I did have a question in response to the trail access. You're talking on the, like where lot 40 is to 41?
Mhm.
Is that what
That's
you're?
what I was thinking. Yeah, it would be somewhere along that public utility easement between 41 and 40. So it would be just in that
I
stretch.
don't really have an issue with that, but I don't understand, why wouldn't you just use like the already existing golf court that's already there?
It's not public.
Gotcha. That's still private, that golf court?
Yes, yes, it is. And I would agree. I think that would make sense. Go down the cart path, hang a left, and get out into the open space that way, but it's private property.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that I know it's got that big rock wall that 40 built, so it might be a challenge, but I don't have any real issue with like using that 10-foot space for that.
Well, at the moment, the space that property line leads to is private property. And so at the moment, it doesn't qualify as an entrance to the public land, so that would have to be negotiated sometime in the future.
Yeah, exactly. This is just a lot of trying to get the crystal ball out and think ahead. That's all.
And would we need any input from the lot 40 owner as well?
It's a 10-foot easement on both sides, that belongs to, as a public utility easement. So it can be used by the public, whether they want people walking down that's a different issue. We'd have to look at that, but at the moment, we can put pipes down it and power down it and all that kind of stuff if that's required for servicing other parts of the community. But that's typically all buried. So yeah, you definitely have to have agreement from both sides, I would think. Polly knows best.
Just a point of clarification, the 10-foot easement, the public utility easement, is on both the north side and the south side of that existing lot 40, 41 and 40. So if you were to put public access easement for trails, it would probably be just on the 10-foot side on the lot that we're discussing right now. Would it be on the one on the south side?
Yeah, because the 10-foot there's a 10-foot side yard setback. So even if there's an easement there, the lot owner on 40 could build up to that 10-foot easement, and so there'd be certainly more input on that at the appropriate time.
Well, 40's built, so. Well, 40's built, yeah.
So the appropriate time might be now.
Right, well, I think, I mean, Chris is looking ahead to the future. I think the landowner is on record as saying that if that were to happen, they did not have an objection to using their side, is what I heard. So I think there's I think that's enough on that discussion. I think we got enough to move that forward.
Can we incorporate the landowner's a willingness to cooperate with the trail into the resolution? In other words, what's the basis of it?
Would be in the notes that Thomas puts together for the For the recording, right, Thomas?
Yes, we could put that into the resolution that we can incorporate a trail access easement in there. If it were to be developed, that remains to be seen, but at least the easement would be in the subdivision.
Like to see that.
Go ahead, Ms.
I
Allen.
just want to make sure when you do that you specify that the side that it would be on, because it couldn't be on the side that we're gonna do an addition in the future.
Right, it would have to be on the south side as shown on this drawing between your lot and lot 40.
That's
Right.
correct. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Ms.
And one of you was going to make a comment before Chris went on, so.
That was me. I was just gonna ask Thomas, do we feel that the open lot or the lot that's going to be largely open, that we've kind of locked that down so that nothing could go there other than pretty much open space?
That's correct. We've noted that no additional accessory structures, garages, parking pads, driveways are permitted on that property. And we've incorporated that into the conditions of approval in the resolution.
Works for me. Thank you.
But they could landscape, the property owner could landscape as long as the landscaping met the requirements of the HOA. Like they could re-landscape, put a few more trees in and such. Is that
That's correct.
okay? And are we sure 125%? Okay, so 125% is the maximum of the increase in the home size.
That's per the design review committee guidelines. Yeah.
Are we going to reinforce that or set that limit ourselves, or are we just going to allow the HOA to do that and they could change their mind in the future? You never know.
Those are the standards they have in place. We've seen that on a couple of prior lot combinations. Again, they actually have a significant review and zoning authority here because of the MDA, the way it's written. And so they've adhered to it in the past. We would suspect that they would maintain that. I think they've been pretty consistent there.
Yes, the question I think I hear Chris asking, Thomas, is we take out the per the HOA on this and just state the maximum house size can be increased to is 125%. And that's part of what they're recording.
Oh, we can do that. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
I didn't know where you were going. Okay, perfect.
Right, that would allow, regardless of what the HOA does, it would restrict these folks to 125%.
That sounds good. I actually think this is a good use of this lot. It's a pretty deep hole, from the road. And I always wondered what kind of house could go down there. So I think it's a benefit to the community. Anybody who's walking on Lasso Trail, can now be guaranteed that they can look over the open space for this home owner and, be able to see, have some unobstructed views, not disrupted by having a house in the way.
Okay. All right, any other comments from council? Otherwise, I'm going to open it for public input. So the way you do that is using the raise your hand functionality, or if it's the people in the room, you may raise your hand in here. We'll observe that. Don't see any hands. All right, then I'll close public input on that particular item, and if the council is through with their questions, then it's now time to decide if we want to approve this or not. And to do that, we would raise a motion.
I would make a motion that's subject to the comments we've made this evening, that we approve it.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Any correction?
Yeah.
And could I add one thing? I'm so sorry. It looks like I'm reviewing a document that notes there could be some sort of a lift station that exists underground right behind 41 and 42. And so I think we have in the conditions of approval toward the very bottom there, language about utility easements, et cetera, that could play a, again, that will be determined by the town engineer, just for clarification. If there is something back there, we're not sure.
But isn't the language discussing that already in here, Thomas?
It is for the public utility easement, so I think that probably covers it, but I just wanted to put that on the record that we do want to confirm that piece at the very back. It's a bit unclear in the documentation we have, but that is something that we would review, certainly with the town engineer before recordation. I just wanted to put it on the record.
I think it's possible, Thomas, that the sewer line runs on the back line of those properties.
I think it runs very close. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking at. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does, as it feeds, it's gravity feed down to the current lift station. So,
That's what I'm thinking. Okay. Yep. That makes sense. You're on the same page. I just wanted to make sure you were all aware of that. Okay.
and it runs behind the reflection, not the ridge, but the other one, runs behind those as well. Okay, so Jonathan, you please make the motion.
Sure. Subject to the comments and corrections that we've made this evening, which would be incorporated into the final document, I move that we approve.
One second, sure. Second, Ralph, all right. Okay. Chris, how do you
Yes,
feel about accepting that? Okay. And Bob,
Yes.
okay. John, Ralph,
Yes.
and Jonathan.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes, lot combo is approved under the conditions that were discussed. Okay. The next public hearing item is an amendment of the master development agreement for Deer Springs allowing short-term rentals in phases 2B, 4, and 8. The developers withdrawn to A. That just happened last night. I don't know if you guys have seen enough of it to think about it. There was quite a bit of public discussion. So I don't know if you want to talk about this tonight or push it off.
this is one of those items, I think there would be so much input about. I'd love it if we could just push this one off to the March 6th meeting. Give us a little more time to collect our thoughts about that, as well as, I got a chance to talk to one planning commissioner because I wasn't able to attend the meeting, but so I read the staff report, but this is a big decision for us. There's a lot of opinions about short-term rentals here, and I think we need to just take a little bit more time to think about it.
I agree with Chris. I had a chance to review the notes and got a chance to look at the YouTube section on the discussion, but I agree, there's a lot of, we've had surveys, we've had a lot of input based upon those surveys and the general plan about what we think about short-term rentals. So, actually, if we put this on, it's only not another couple of weeks.
Another week.
Yeah, another week.
Not even.
And I think we need to get some more input. Obviously, there was quite a lot of input from what I heard on the recording and from some of the letters or the emails that came in. So we're spending a little bit more time on this.
I personally would like to see a little more work in the background to see if some of the issues can be worked out between the parties that are impacted. And maybe another week could give them a chance to at least attempt that. Whether or not they're successful is a different matter.
And one more comment here. Mayor, was because I thought when they kind of left off last night that they were really focusing on just phase 8. but you're saying that it's still on,
Well, it would be, the recommendation from the planning commission was phase 8 only, but the request is,
okay,
so we're looking at the request. Planning commission is a recommending body. Doesn't mean that the council has to do everything that they, because the planning commission looks at it from a planning standpoint, not necessarily as holistically as the town. So there's revenue opportunities with this proposal that have to be considered by council.
yeah, and that's one of the things that I didn't see. I mean, normally when we're talking about any revenue situations, is Mr. Brockbank on the line here?
Yeah.
You know, I didn't see any, you know, kind of spreadsheet that gave us an indication of what kind of expected revenues. And that's what we like to see with any of these submissions where there's nightly rentals or sales tax associated with them. And I didn't see any documentation to that effect. Nate, are you on the line?
And Ralph, I could jump in as Nate starts to pop in here. We do have we do have an analysis. It's from about a year ago, I think. And so if we bring this back next week, we can incorporate that whole analysis into the report. We do have that information.
Yeah, I wouldn't make any determination on this until we could see the numbers. And so I didn't see those included in any of the documentation that I went through, so.
Yeah, I think there's some significant numbers here and we should, absolutely, council should see them. And understand the implications of saying, if they say yes, and also the implications if they say no.
Yeah, and if you're gonna maintain it as 2B, 4, and 8, we should have separate breakdown of the numbers by each of those phases. Does that make sense? You know, I can't tell if Nate's on.
He's on.
We have that.
Yeah, I turned that in like six months ago, I think.
The,
Yeah,
the other
we'll-
thing, just to add onto what Ralph was saying, because I totally agree with what Ralph is saying, but I don't fully understand the water and the MIDA give that's in here and explaining, especially the MIDA. I think the water part I kind of get, but the MIDA part is just so opaque to me. I don't understand what that means. So having some number samples there would be helpful.
I would like to better understand exactly what's being retained and what's being given to the town as part of that. Because I read the agreement and it expressly says certain rights are being given, but certain rights are not. I'd like to understand which ones are not.
And you know, to the water rights, I'd say, you know, I thought about that, Nate, and you know, it seems like we've got, you know, one option there. Whereas I think if I was gonna lean into this a little bit, I'd probably say, what are some other options in and around those water rights? And I'm not dictating anything to you, but I would certainly think that, you know, 10 acre feet, I think is what you were indicating there, is worth something. We know what that's worth roughly. But, you know, maybe it's an option of more than that, where the town benefits, you know, increasingly based upon the phases that might be able to get short-term rental. Anyway, think about that. Be happy to talk through that because we've done this with someone else as well, more currently. So anyway, food for thought.
For clarity, Ralph, it's 10 acre feet at zero charge and 10 more acre feet at a less than market cost. So 24 acre feet.
Yeah, and so I would, you know, I mean, I don't want to get into how we would negotiate this, but one thing is you could have some options, rather than just, you know, it's like, additional options in the future if there are additional acre feet. Because I think that would serve the town in a greater way. But I'd be happy to take that offline and see how we could come to some, you know, thoughts on that.
Well, Thomas, do you feel that between now and a week from now, we can pull out those financials and have the clarity that we can't wait till then. We have to get it to the council so they have time to review it. Because we can't even get the package out per our specs for next week. So that's a challenge as well. But, so I guess Nate, if you're around, and Thomas, if you're available, I guess we probably need Jan or Katie or somebody as well to look at that. We need to dust those economics off and get them out to the council quickly.
I can do that.
And-
We have the financials. We'll need to work a little bit with maybe Jan and Katie on the MIDA language just to make sure that that's fully understood. But the rest of it we do have. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think importantly, in all these negotiations, it's the give and the get. So that's the piece that I'm not firm on. I think Jonathan sounds like he's not firm on either. And this leaves us an opening to establish a negotiation with you of, what are the upper bounds to that get based upon the phases and what are the lower bounds? So if you're willing to talk about that, Nate, I'd be willing to talk to you.
Yeah. You just call, give me a call.
And by the way, why do you need this? I mean, is there a time bogey on your end in terms of, when you need this, when you think you need this either ratified, so to speak, or approved by the town council or not? Is there any time that you'd like to, that you're under pressure on? Otherwise, we'd almost move it off to the meeting
No.
after, we only have like a week here.
No, it's just that it gets a lot more complicated when you start building in those phases. Like 2A got really complicated because I guess the disclosures weren't quite clear enough or maybe even made. And so that's why I took 2A off, because there's 12 contracts out of 17 homes we have going there. And I don't know when we're going to start phase 2B. It's developed. I don't know when we're going to start building there. And that's the only thing. It gets a lot more complicated when you go to a buyer and say, hey, we might have nightly renters or we might not have nightly rentals. It'd be nice just to say, there's no nightly rentals here, or we're going to have nightly rentals, and you guys can decide at that point. And so last night there was, I think, three people that got up and said they weren't made aware of this. And so I just took phase 2A off, which is 44 townhomes. I just took it off because I didn't think that was fair. If they were not told, I didn't think it was
I
fair.
was listening to those, Nate, and I think they were relevant, and that's why I was asking you, and to their, to their comments, they were reasonable comments. I think you acted along that, so.
Agree, and now that we have more time, I'll call each one of those and go meet with them and see if there's any way to resolve it. Hopefully they're all buying in phase 1. We're letting one lady out of her contract if she wants. And we'll let everyone out of their contracts if they want, but we are not doing anything in 2A. We've only put under contract homes in 2A. So this 2A is not even in play right now. It's off the table completely. So, but it's just 2B, 4, and then 8 across the street.
Yep.
Across Jordan Parkway.
Okay, thanks, Nate. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you.
and again, for the comments from the council, want to take appropriate amount of time for consideration. I appreciate that. And we do need to do a better job of making sure we understand the value proposition for the town as well. So we'll get that going. So what I need is a motion to continue the amendment of the NDA for Deer Springs to the date certain to be in March 6th.
So moved.
I can second that.
Okay. Chris?
So Mayor, before I vote, can you please, allow for the phone participants a chance to, motion or second a motion? I know it's easier for people in the room, but
Yes, you can.
it puts, we're not on a fully level playing field.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And for that, I will say yes.
And I'm sorry, this was a public hearing, right? Did we?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, we're gonna continue it, probably, so.
Yeah,
We
you
can
still
open it
need
up.
to, you should still open the public hearing though.
That's fine. We'll open it up. For public input on the Deer Springs Night Runs. I'm not seeing any hand here nor in the room. So I will close it and come back to the motion to continue to a date certain, March 6th. And we'll redo that. So a motion to continue to March 6th. Ralph, anybody want to second that? What do you want?
Well, I thought I moved or Chris moved.
Okay.
I can't remember.
All right, so who wants to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone want to second that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay. Jonathan,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
and Ralph.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks, Nate.
Thanks.
Thanks for your patience.
Oh, you're great. Thank you.
Thomas, you want to address what number 3 is before we see how the council feels about talking about it?
And Mayor, do you, just since I'm online here, what I'm seeing is just the staff report from the first.
Yeah, I haven't moved. I'm sorry. That's my fault. I'm multitasking and not doing a good job of it, Paul. Thanks for reminding me.
Sure, I just thought you might have thought it was the agenda.
No, it's not the agenda. I'm looking at the copy. I'm trying to get it to the top.
So as the mayor takes us up there, number 3 is consideration of an amendment for the resort specially planned area, the our spa zoning district, to allow public facilities as conditional uses. This was initiated by the offer of temporary use of shoreline land for the fire station. And we do not currently have an outlet to allow that kind of facility in the R spot. It doesn't allow for conditional uses or other non-residential uses, such as a fire station or public facilities. And so this would be recommended language to allow those as a conditional use permit.
Thomas, how does that, affect the long-term use and zoning for that piece of property? So this is like temporary, and then, does that, once you,
They vacate.
change that, they can vacate that, yeah. So is that the intention of, is that what we want?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because the R Spa zoning district covers the entire master HOA. It is the full MDA. That is the zoning designation for the MDA. So it covers the entire 1,000+ acres. And so right now, even where town hall is, we don't really technically have an allowance for public facilities such as that in the R Spa designation. So this would allow public facilities as needed. They would have to go through a conditional use permit approval before the planning commission, meet criteria before they would permit it. So it's not a permitted use to say residential development or a residential unit is, but it would go through the conditional use process and they could be allowed in that zoning designation. It's quite a large zoning designation.
So what we're saying, Thomas, is this creates an avenue to have the discussion.
That's
It
correct.
does not approve any of these things.
No, with
Simply
conditional use permits, they're very
Creates an avenue
yeah,
that
it's an
then
avenue They're very site specific. It has to meet criteria. And so again, it's not a by right. You can't go into town hall and get a permit for one of these public facilities. You have to go through the conditional use permit, a public hearing process before the planning commission, meet the criteria. So it provides the avenue. It's not a guarantee, but subject to meeting the criteria, we can potentially utilize the RSPA for some of these public facilities.
So Thomas, I thought my understanding of conditional use was that if some property owner were to bring forward a proposal for any conditional use, we couldn't deny it. We could just simply set conditions that they'd have to meet. And if they couldn't meet it, then they couldn't do it. But so that would open up the entire RSPA zone for a fire station, police station, a town hall, public works facility, library or library branch, or some kind of public building or facility to the whole RSPA zone, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so if a property owner came forward and said, hey, I want to build one of the above.
They would have they would submit an application, and they would have to meet the criteria for conditional use permits that is listed in the ordinance.
And right, I mean, Chris is right. You're right that a conditional use is an allowed use so long as the impacts can be mitigated. But, you know, if you need to evaluate the reasonable impacts.
Thomas, can you refresh our memory of the map of the RSPA zone?
It is, it includes Golden
It's
Eagle.
the entire, like Hideout Canyon, originally master planned area, right?
MDA area, so Soaring Hawk, Hideout, Hideout Canyon, the settlement, Rustler, Golden Eagle,
Silver
pretty much.
Sky.
Yeah.
Would this include Shoreline, which is the site of the temporary station?
Shoreline, yes.
Shorelines in there.
That's pretty important.
So the real question is, Thomas, is this overkill? I mean, if why don't we just say fire station and be done with it and not open up the door to anything else, because we don't have any demands for anything else at the moment. So why are we opening up such a broad amount of space when we're really just trying to do something to enable the fire district to have space to do what they're doing for 3 years before they move out?
We could do that. The thought was that since we were making some of the changes, the town hall actually exists in the RSPA zone. We thought maybe that would be a way to kind of get that right, just to ensure that it's legitimately in the RSPA. And then with regard to a potential library or other facilities, we were thinking that if and when Shoreline does come forward with their subsequent phases where they do have a community center, maybe some retail, et cetera, if there were a need to put maybe a library branch or, you know, one of these other public facilities there, we'd have that right, because right now we don't. It just really specifies commercial. And so we were just thinking ahead. With that being said, we can absolutely just do fire station now and address this later. That is fine.
I actually appreciate that Thomas threw all that stuff in, Mayor, because, we've talked about many of these things. Well, and Carol's not here, but she would say senior center or, public meeting space.
Yeah.
So I actually, I think it's an opportunity for us to throw all these things in that we might want and don't have. Yet, there is we don't have a lot of undeveloped land available, but you never know. There might be an opportunity in the future to move the town hall, for example, or you just don't know. We can't predict the future, but I kind of like throwing all this stuff in. I was just trying to clarify what it really meant, and that means that any of these, if they could meet the conditions, could be any place in the original Hideout Canyon, MDA area, should that ever come to pass. And in this case, we have the opportunity to put a temporary fire station in. That's in this zone. Which we all
My
want.
only on that is what someone else might do, given the authority that we just gave all the developers in that area to do, which could be positive, but it also could be to their benefit. And that's that's something we really can't control. I'd like to think about this a little bit more, certainly before I vote on it. I'd just like to see what some of the pluses and minuses are. And I haven't heard enough here from my view at least. And so how, Jonathan, you've been on top of this, Mayor.
That's what I want to kind of bring this one down to this one specific
Exactly.
instance.
I
And
agree.
then we
with
can
you.
come back and talk about all these other things. I think Chris has a good point.
Yeah.
Thomas has a good point about these other things, but I think we need to put some more
Yeah.
thought into the control mechanisms around those things. When we're really, the only thing we're under the time pressure for at the moment is trying to get something set up for the fire station.
Yeah, so opening up all these other things could also open up a Pandora's box that we haven't considered. Sounds good, all sounds good, but I don't know if we've thought through this enough. So I agree, with that thought, let's zone in on what we want to accomplish, get that done, and then, consider whether we want to widen this out at some other point.
That's, how do we address the fact that the town hall is actually in this RSPA zone and it was never, was never properly approved for, that use for the zone?
It is an existing non-conforming use right now. So if you
Conforming use,
didn't
thank you.
include it now and wanted to come back and visit it later, we could. We are an existing non-conforming use. Yeah.
So Thomas, is there a way to just focus on the fire station requirement and then let the council have some more time to think the rest of this stuff through and raise their concerns about the rest of the language?
Yeah, super easy. So really what we would be doing then is in section 12.30.06.20, conditional use categories, where we list the following are conditional uses within the RSPA designation that must meet the conditions and requirements of Hideout Municipal Code section 12.26. We would delete the rest of them, add fire station. That is it. That would be the only conditional use we're adding. There are no other conditional uses in the RSPA. So just delete police station down to symbol.
Yeah.
Hey, can I request before we would put this up for a potential motion and vote, that we get the actual temporary fire station update? I know it's further down in the agenda, but I think that would be helpful.
All right, I can do that. It's pretty quick. The personnel building is in place, anchored. It has some of the connections to the utilities. I don't know if they've all been done. We have our meeting tomorrow to get the detail on whether those are done. And the fire district has the funds to purchase the temporary building for the house, the apparatus. And so we're getting the final cost on that and then based in the layout, so we could get the land work done. So we expect to have by the end of tomorrow, a sense of what the cost gap is, since the fire district's paying for the building and GCT has provided the hookups or is in the process of providing the hookups. There are some additional costs that have to be covered, and we'll have those numbers together before our meeting next week for sure. And we can talk about then the ideas we have for a fundraiser to take care of those other costs. And that's where we are.
Did this go to the planning commission this week?
4 to 6, sorry, the building is 4 to 6 weeks away based on what the vendor was saying, so.
Thanks,
Sorry,
Mayor.
Chris.
Did this go to the planning commission already since it's land use?
So this language did go to the planning commission and they favorably recommended this. You certainly
Okay.
have the right to reduce it, obviously. If this does get approved, the planning commission will hear the conditional use permit for the fire station in, March 21st, I think. And also just along this line, so if we just leave fire station, I wonder if we should maybe say fire station and emergency management services, maybe just to kind of cover kind of fire station paramedic. That's maybe understood.
Perhaps fire station / EMS.
Yeah.
Yes.
While we're at this, is there any chance we could deal with item 14 on this? I think it's a pretty quick one. We could do, if there's a willingness, I think we could deal with that and dispose of that and get it off our agenda, because I think we're gonna have a loaded one.
What's
Next
item
time.
14?
That's the new language added to clarify that RVs and boats are not allowed to be parked or stored on any properties in Hideout. I think it's page 51.
Okay, so before
We're not
we,
there yet.
yeah,
Oh,
before we
whoa.
do anything, we still need to open up the public hearing.
I agree, Polly.
Yeah,
No,
no, I
I'm
know.
sorry.
I just wanted
No,
to.
we'll deal with that separately.
Yeah.
My recommendation, I talked with Thomas about that. We're teeing it up for information. I'm not looking for a vote tonight. I'm recommending no vote tonight on item 14. Doesn't add up.
Polly, do we need to do open public hearing for this particular item and then do the others independently, right? I think, or others.
Yeah.
Within this.
Oh, within this.
Yes, within this document, item 14.
Ah.
Not a separate item.
Sorry.
This item.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess what we did, I can understand, I understand the confusion now. This at the last night, we separated out just this single one and had a draft ordinance just having to do with this item. And so in my mind, we had separated this out. So maybe what we want to do is do what we want to do with this one and then do the rest of the ordinance changes
Collectively, I think, yeah. And we'll remove item. I had a good conversation with some folks today, Brett Rutter and others, with the need, with a recommendation to revise 14, make some changes, get community input. So we definitely want to take that one out of the collective review, but this one is independent.
Okay, can we stick with this one? Because I have a few comments on the next one. Can we open it if we're done talking about number 3 of public hearings for the R spots?
Yeah.
Can we get public input on that?
That's what I'm trying to do. If I can get a word in here. Okay. Thomas did a staff report that covers more than one line item in the space. And so it's confusing that it is that way, but it is. So there are other things that to deal with, technical corrections and updates and all that kind of stuff, which we're going to talk about later. So we're really only addressing in his staff report right now, conditional use categories. Okay? That's the first thing I want to make clear. Right? And so we were talking about what we need to do to allow the fire station to fire EMS to have space for, to do this inside our zoning requirements. So I'm opening for comment, just the discussion around the conditional use that would allow the fire station, and given the fact that the council has asked for more time on these other categories, we're really only talking about, we would modify this proposal for this to just address the fire station. And with that, let's deal with hands. Okay, Brett, you're back on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had more time to look at this and consider this during the day since last night's or 2 nights ago planning commission meeting, and I guess totally supportive of the fire station initiative and all the activity there. Very much appreciate all the effort that's gone into that. I do have a bit of concern about opening up the entire R spot area to have these other uses. I'm not an expert at this, but when I read the 122606 approval of conditional use, it really shifts the burden that it's a shall be approved if reasonable conditions are proposed. So it shifts it from a may issue to a shall issue, like I believe Councilmember Bear was alluding to. I would, I mean, maybe theoretical a little bit, but if somebody down the street from me donated land to the town in exchange for something else for some reason, or just out of their goodwill, I would not necessarily want to have a public works building put there. And this would shift it to where I would have to probably show the burden of proof would be on me to show that it's not reasonable to put it there. You know, we've got to anticipate there may be a completely different council in play down the road when something like that could happen. And I feel like it's really opening up a massive area to these types of uses that would not be appropriate. I think we need to try to fix the fire station, and by that means also probably fix the town hall, but not covering the entire R spot area, even with a fire station, because that could end up next to or across the street from where many of us live. And there's certain areas of town that's probably most appropriate, and you know, between two houses might not be the most appropriate. So that's my comment on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Very good comment. Donna, can we put language in that says that, if these facilities are abandoned, then they fall back into, they don't retain their conditional use?
Conditional uses typically run with the land. Polly may want to weigh in here. One of the things we could do is we could put maybe a minimum lot size for, say, a fire station, or, you know, I don't know, could we do could a conditional use be a temporary fire station for up to 3 years? I don't know, Polly, could we do something like that if we really wanted to limit? I'm not sure.
I think having a time restriction would be tough, but I think we could definitely put in something about a lot size or some requirements related to the location or the access or that type of thing. I mean, the other thing is, well, it does kind of conditional use, you know, it is it's defined by state law, but obviously if a fire station was like all the way in the middle of a residential area, then there would be impacts that likely would not be able to be mitigated, that could not be reasonably mitigated, which is in part why we have it be a conditional use. So, and in terms of abandonment, I mean, if it was a temporary, if it was a fire station and then that use is abandoned, it's just abandoned. And it would, I guess if another fire station came back, it could be used for the same thing, but it would be limited to that.
I mean, the concern I have probably is if Glenn decides that we now have additional use here and he says, great, not gonna build that, I'm gonna do something else here.
No, the conditional use is specific to the use requested. And the other thing is as part of that conditional use, you can have conditions in order to mitigate impact. So you could say, if it's not used for a certain amount of time, that use shall expire. Or once we have the application before us, you can make it very specific to the use intended.
I'm just thinking about the comments made about opening a can of worms and trying to make that can very small.
What if we just limit the authorization to the Wasatch County Fire Department for the purposes of a temporary fire station? And leave it at that, that would lock things in, or lock things down fairly tightly.
I mean, then you don't want to legislate for one particular, and what happens if the district name changes, or I mean, I don't think there are too many people competing. I don't think there are competing fire stations coming in. It's usually, so I don't think we have to worry so much about that.
Is it, Polly, would it be possible to, I know in some of the criteria, specific areas of a district can be utilized as a condition of approval. Could we specify it to a particular neighborhood, shoreline, or a phase?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could say can only be within a certain distance from a main artery or something like that. But
I just want to ask, we're doing this through a zoning change for the R spa zone because that's what we can control, right? Without attempting to open an MDA in that area. Is that right?
no, this not quite. This doesn't have to do with the MDA or opening the MDA. This is our ability to regulate land within the town and the uses that are permitted.
Yeah, this is just the underlying district for that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you've addressed some of the concern areas. If we just make it for the fire station, I think we're okay. We know they're leaving.
Well, Mayor, I would also want to make sure this temporary fire station really is temporary and that a permanent, more ideally located one would eventually be constructed. I don't want it to be a temporary fire station that's there for 20 years as a trailer or an outbuilding.
The lease on the land is only 3 years. I don't know. You probably said not to put times in this, so I don't know.
I'm not saying you put times in this. I'm just telling you that's my worry. We get a temporary fire station and then.
I don't think it should be there either, so I'm trying to find a way to get there.
This one, it is tough because we're talking about a use, but we're also talking about an applicant who is going to want to work with us and is cognizant of impacts. So, when they apply for their conditional use, maybe we can, ask them, what's the longest this could be there in this form, or as a condition, we want to restrict how long you can have a trailer there, or that type of thing.
Could we get around the time, temporary to the structure, defining a structure as temporary or permanent in this case? So we're allowing a non-permanent structure here. And then, with the view that we want a permanent structure. I don't know.
In a different location.
In a different location. And that gets you away from locking in time. So thinking about the structural definition versus the time definition.
I think it's important to recognize that the fire department is currently working with an architect. And currently, Thomas, maybe you could update us on where they are with that. But they're actively working on a permanent structure to be located within the town of Hideout. All the terms haven't been worked out, but Thomas, could you kind of give us a 30-second sketch of that?
So they're looking at the potential 7 acres that the town owns on 248. So they're looking at concepts for that area. As we've coordinated with them, we've asked them to look at, potentially maybe a police substation, kind of a combined use, maybe a couple of workforce housing units on the upper levels, things like that. And so they've got rough concepts drawn out. They haven't gone much further than that. All of their attention right now actually is kind of focused on the temporary one, but that is something that we do have a couple of versions submitted from them.
Do they have a definition of, you know, a permanent structure, so to speak, or a fire, you know? Yeah, so why don't can we use that as, you know, we're
Well, I don't want to, are we making this harder than we need to, is what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to address the concerns. It is easy. So Thomas, is there another way to do this besides conditional use? Is in the conditional use application, can we put specifications that, because we're, according to the definition of conditional use, they have to meet certain criteria. And so can we make sure that the criteria that they have to meet and would agree to in their conditional use application would limit all these things?
We do have a, I could share my screen with you if it's helpful, but I could show you what the conditional use conditions are. Give me 1 second. And as Polly noted, we can incorporate more specific criteria if that were desired. So these are the criteria that the Planning Commission may require as they look at a conditional use permit. So certainly the placement of the conditional use, bulk and massing standards, compatibility with
Thomas,
character.
can you make that a little bigger, if you don't mind? Because I'm sure people are struggling to read that.
See.
See it. There we go. Thank you.
How's that? So we've kind of got these are compliance criteria. Again, location, character, screening requirements. I'll scroll up here and then go wherever you want me to go. We have some safety criteria that the Planning Commission can utilize as conditions. There's some health and sanitation in this area.
I've kind of lost track of the problem we're trying to solve, and I apologize, but what exactly is the concern, if we could boil that down?
As I understand it, that we want to ensure that the fire station doesn't remain as a temporary structure forever. That we haven't approved that, so we're trying to find where can we put language that would say that, you know, they have to vacate in 3 years or re-up.
So can we make the grant time certain, Polly? Or is there some reason why we can't make the grant of the temporary use for a time certain?
Well, that's my point. So there's kind of two levels here, right? One is the uses that you allow in the zone, and the other is the specific application. And so you can put a level, I would think as part of the application, when you talk about the impacts, you could put conditions on that saying temporary, you know, that it could only be a certain amount, or, I mean, I guess part of the question is what is it going to look like? What's allowed elsewhere, otherwise in the zone? But right now that use isn't allowed. So I do think that we're kind of overthinking it a little bit here. I understand the need to not have unintended consequences. But I think that the goal is to have a fire station temporary, you know, which is going to be temporary initially in this location, that we have another spot, right, for the permanent one. But I don't think a lot of people are running out to build fire stations. I mean, maybe we would be happy if they are, but really the only one who could put in a fire station is the district. So
I think we have two important limiting factors. Number one, Glenn's only gonna give them a 3-year lease because he wants to build a house on there and, you know, and sell the house. So I don't know how I guess I'm having trouble getting my grip on the problem here.
I agree, Jonathan, so we're basically saying we want to restrict the conditional use to fire station. And, that we will reevaluate the other conditional uses and the way to use conditional use in the future. We're just trying to get the fire station moving ahead so they can be at the planning commission meeting in a couple of weeks. All right, that's really the goal of what we're trying to do today. I think we're all aligned to help these guys keep it moving. And now it's, what's the best mechanism to do that? Sounds like we have to do conditional use because we have it zoned a different way right now. And so we have to allow this to happen. And so if we restrict it to fire station, and I think we have pretty high confidence that they're not gonna want to stay there. So, so I think it's okay to make a motion to well, I have to open for public input, but if nothing comes from that, then I'd say the goal would be to have a motion to allow conditional use for fire station only per the language that, Thomas has put together, excluding all those other categories. And then we'll deal with all those other categories some other time. That's where I think we want to go.
I don't think you should put a time limit on it, though. I mean, I know you're saying 3 years, but what if after 3 years, there's no place to put a fire station?
But we're not putting a time limit on.
Oh, you did,
Polly said we're not.
okay. I thought, I heard you say.
But
3 years.
the chief has got an agreement for 3 years use of that land.
Okay,
So, and, our intention is to help them find a permanent home and get it going. But yeah, this language does not put a time limit on it, just creates the conditional use for doing that. And our concern was, what if he says, I need 3 more years? Then, but the whole thing's designed to be portable, so it can move to the other spot. If he knows he's not gonna get there, he can move to the other spot. Could be doing that as well. Because they were gonna put it in the parking lot of that they were gonna build for the new location.
Right.
So it can all move pretty easily.
And Glenn's gonna want that land back
Yeah.
anyway,
Right.
because he's not in the business of selling fire stations.
Or leasing for zero money. And I don't blame him.
Yeah, exactly. So he's going, yeah, I think we're in decent shape here.
So, because it is public hearing, we're talking about, additional use approval, inside the R spot for specifically for fire stations. And then if anyone from member of public has a comment on that, this would be the time to raise your hands. Okay. I've seen no hands, so we'll close public input. And again, can you state this, please, so that I don't screw this up?
We have an
With the
ordinance,
motion.
don't we, Alicia.
Yeah, I have it.
So it would be you're looking for a motion to adopt ordinance number,
Well, there isn't one yet.
do we have a
Or-
number, Alicia? An ordinance adopting public facilities as, yeah, you can just say the title.
Yeah, where the only conditional use should be modified to reflect the only conditional use to be is a fire station. EMS permit, sorry.
/EMS, yeah.
So it would be a motion to adopt the ordinance as amended.
As amended. Okay. So I need a motion to adopt the ordinance for, ordinance adopting public facilities as a conditional use amended to, as amended to, a single conditional use category of fire station.
I'll move.
Thank you, Carolyn.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ralph. Okay, Bob,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Chris,
yes,
Ralph,
Yes.
and Carol.
Yes,
Okay. Thank you. So Thomas, there's your modification to go back to planning commission for final approval.
No, you guys can you don't have to take it. Well,
Oh.
right. The ordinance would be passed and then they
Yeah.
have to apply for a conditional use that will go back to the planning commission. I think that's what you were, I think I misunderstood what you were saying.
Yeah.
So just one quick question. I don't want to belabor this. Just looking at the whereases, I mean, which is kind of like an explanation of why we're doing this. Wouldn't we want to acknowledge that we have an opportunity to put a fire station in or something like that, since we're just limiting it to fire station instead of just general public facilities, only to, you know, because the whereases, aren't they supposed to help us understand the why, you know, the reasons for wanting to do this? And it's not really actually explicitly called out here that we have an opportunity, a rare opportunity that we need to take to put a temporary fire station in, and a permanent fire station. Because I'm thinking that triangle parcel that it is also part of the R spa zone.
Oh, it's not.
It's not.
No, it's not.
So, okay.
Triangle parcel is town land that was not part of the MDA, the master MDA or the RSPA zone.
Okay, thanks.
It's residential, isn't
It's zone 1 per acre.
Yeah.
But it's not.
But we're not there yet, but okay. Like I said, I don't want to belabor it. It's just the whereases aren't out.
In the second whereas, we could simply delete public facilities and insert fire/EMS station.
Yes, we could. And that would help us understand why we're doing it.
Or maybe even temporary fire/EMS station.
No.
Well, the use is a fire station, so.
So with that modification, we'll have to come back and recertify the vote. So motion to adopt an ordinance adopting public facilities as a conditional use in the RSPA zone with a modification of the language in second whereas from public facilities to fire EMS station, and the modification of the conditional use categories to reflect only fire station. I'd like to make that motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
thank you, Carol. Ralph?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes,
Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for all your help, everybody. We recognize that there's an opportunity for a lot of these other things as discussed that we'll have to do some more work on. So. Okay. The next one. Technical corrections and amendments. So Thomas, I'm assuming that's where I should jump back to your. So before I do that, Carol has joined us in person. Thank you. Nice to see you.
thank you. I'm very sorry I'm late, but it was an
You're fine.
emergency.
No problem. We all have lives. Before we do this, because this is coming quickly, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, if any council person would like to defer this, then I'm okay with deferring.
I have a question, yeah, I'd probably say there were some like changes that I couldn't keep up with at the end there, to be very honest with you. And then there were some incorrections. So, meaning you left on a lot of language from mountain zone. And then went back and forth and said, it's related to, the sentence at the top, so to speak, so, I didn't feel like I had a really good, idea of exactly what we were getting into in the exact language. Does that make sense, Thomas? Because I think we went round and round, or, I wouldn't say round and round, but I'd certainly say there were some iterations there that, I didn't feel totally comfortable with. Could, I think it'd be really useful in any of these situations to understand if we're making technical corrections and amendments to those codes, because there's 3, 7, 8, 10. I mean, that's a lot. What are the implications? Not just the correction. So I think I've asked for this before, and I couldn't figure that out 100%, and I'm fairly familiar with the code. So either we do that as part of the meeting, or we put this off and we all get maybe better information between now and the next meeting.
There is a real mismatch of stuff here.
Yeah.
Some of these are, typos and blah, blah, blah. And so there's a lot in here that needs to be read and understood. I'm not sure if
Mayor Thomas, council members, I know there's a lot of chatter around certain sections of here, a lot of public clamor, not through official channels. So there are some areas that feel like they need to go back to the planning commission just for more clarity. For example, that section that talked about, RVs and things. It feels like it needs to go back and be written carefully, clearly. And it would be helpful if we could separate out those things that are just kind of
I agree.
technical, if we're going to fix some stuff rather than actual policy changes. And those policy changes, the ones that aren't fully written out, really should, I would ask that the planning commission spend a little more time on them. And if we could separate them, and maybe you can bring forward as soon as you can the little technical changes that are not policy changes, and then let's have perhaps another go with the planning commission on those policy changes.
Could I, on behalf of Alicia, could I ask, I'm getting a little echo here, sorry, but there's one section that has to do with noticing that's towards the end. And a lot of these, whatever you guys want to do, I think, the ordinance is overwhelming, but it really matches the staff report pretty well. And so really, I think the only substantive change was the one having to do with RVs, but of course, if there's others, or staff can do whatever you like. However, there is one section, I think it's way at the end, maybe about noticing for conditional uses. And it requires, it's old language, it was based on old language having to do with the putting stuff in newspapers, which is just untenable now and is not required by state law. And so where we may be having a conditional use come in and we have some time constraints, I would ask that you consider adopting this one provision at least.
Okay, can we step through that one provision then? I'm gonna be honest, I didn't read that part. It was too much on short notice to get to that. So can you step us through that?
Sure. So state code changed in our old code. It required that you would publish a notice in a newspaper, which used to be the state code requirement. but now we're just changing it and just saying that when an application is complete, town staff will establish the date for public hearing, that providing sufficient public notice as required by Utah State Code.
And now Utah State Code just public notice, public meeting notice website postings within a certain time, right? And that's, and then any, if, I don't know what else is in the Utah State Code for notification of a conditional use permit, but is there anything beyond that? Do you have to notify like adjacent landowners or anything like that?
No, for conditional use. Oh. Were you saying something, Alicia? I'm sorry, I'm getting a little feedback. But under state law, they just have kind of a noticing schedule that they implemented in 2023 that was new as of May of last year. And basically it's the public notice website, our website, posting it near on our building. There is no requirement to notify neighbors. That could be something that we as a municipality want to do. It has its own pluses and minuses to doing that. But in any case, currently we don't require that. So this basically is just updating the code to match the current state code.
Okay, and that would be an easy technical, we'll call it technical change to our ordinance. So that would be something I think we could easily handle in this meeting. Is there any other section that you want to call out that would be like that simple to be able to handle?
There are a lot that are very simple, but there are a lot which makes them less simple, I guess. I mean, we could tackle a few that
Are there any time sensitive ones that, you know, we need to have corrected this within the next 2 weeks? Or, you know, what I mean, but besides the obvious conditional use permit, which we've been talking about, we're expecting one for the temporary fire station. But
That was
anything
the
else?
one, which is why we did that one independently. But I think this noticing one is a good one because it does matter for the conditional use permit that is about to be submitted. So those would be two. A majority of,
Thomas, you broke up.
sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you broke up, you said, because all we heard was the conditional use, we didn't hear the other one.
Oh, sorry. So the conditional use one, obviously we separated out. That was important for the fire station. This one is important for the noticing of the conditional use for the fire station. So that's important. A majority of these, it looks like a lot, but most of these are really just fixes. There's really just a few policy changes. With that being said, there's nothing else that is time sensitive over the next couple of weeks before the next planning or next town council meeting. So I think we're fine. I think I can easily separate these, keep them in order in terms of code, but also separate them in terms of just really fixes for typos. And then there are a few that do address policy and just timing issues where we're trying to get things more in line with where you guys want them, get applications in sooner so we can get reports out sooner, little things like that. But we can easily reorganize this. Polly, Alicia, I don't think there's anything in here that is time sensitive for tonight other than the conditional use permit and the noticing, I think.
Of course, the only issue we have is just the reality, is another week going to be enough? I mean, how are you going to be able, you know, or I guess what we can do is maybe, Thomas, we could, in the staff report or in the ordinance, use a color code or something and just show which ones are really just technical changes and which ones, I would say of this huge document, which is really outlined much more concisely in the staff report, but of the 29 items, I would say 3 of them are probably policy questions and all the rest are just technical, changing a typo, that type.
Correct directions in terms of reference code references, etc. But I think maybe what I could do is put all of the the policy ones maybe upfront or something as a as a grouping, and then maybe group the fixes. Maybe that's an easy way to do it. We can do that.
And Thomas, on the policy ones, can you add some verbiage as to the reason? So you can put that in a different color, because I think that would help. You know, the important stuff, get further clarification. Why are we doing this?
Yep, I can expand on the policy outline in the report. Yeah.
So the question I would ask is, can that be done in a week, Thomas? If we were to adopt the changes recommended for 12/26/08 and continue the rest of it until March 6th, is that enough time? Otherwise, it's going into April.
No, I think we can do that. I can reorganize this. The one that was somewhat controversial regarding RVs, et cetera. That one that may not make the 6th. We'll see about that, because I would like to meet with some of the community members. I had a good conversation with Brett Rutter and some others today, and they had some really good input. And so we want to make sure we get their input on that. I can try to do that by the 6th. Certainly, it may or may not.
Thomas, on that section about the RVs, can we send that section back to Planning Commission to just work on a little more?
Sure, that's fine. That gives that one more time, and we can
Take it off your plate, send it back to Planning Commission, ask them to spend some more time and, you know, try to make a tight, you know, a better
Particularly, Thomas,
policy.
what you and I talked about today, Thomas, and what the HOA is doing, I think you have to reflect on that as well.
Yeah, we want to tie that a little more closely, and again, work with the community and get their input. So yeah, that we'll take that one back to PC Planning Commission and work with them, as well as some of the community members that have some thoughts and input. That'd be great.
The other thing you'll need to look at is enforcement, depending on what you allow.
Correct.
What you propose to allow.
Yeah, and that's
So,
actually
if it's time limited, how's the enforcement gonna happen? If it's during, you know, it has to be restricted, whatever you do, it has to be restricted during winter, et cetera.
right.
And there were some comments in email or comments that, you know, from the towns, or yourself, I can't remember who made them, you know, comparing them to, say, Park City or other, you know, surrounding communities. If you probably know this already, but in the next iteration of this, where you're, you know, putting this up front in the policy section, can you also provide the links to maybe one or two other surrounding communities that we might be able to take a look at as well, as for comparison?
Sure.
Or incorporate them in your,
Or incorporate them, and then why, you know, why do we do that? But that would be useful.
okay, so this is a public hearing item, and then although we're going to continue to a date certain, I will open it up for any comments that people have at the moment, although, again, most of all, except for the conditional use, everything else is being pushed back. So. I see Brett's hand up again, so go ahead. Oh, sorry, hang on, I just called this guy on the screen,
Okay.
so please, wait. Go ahead, Brett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just do want to acknowledge and appreciate the council's, you know, removing that section on the RVs and pushing that back to the Planning Commission. And I did have a very good call with Thomas today on that. I was a little remiss at how the Planning Commission did not seem very inviting to any public comment at Tuesday nights or Monday night's call, I guess it was. So I hope that maybe the Planning Commission can be directed specifically to seek public input and work with the public, given the attitudes that were expressed on Monday's call. I'd be happy to help with that wording. And like I said, Thomas was great to have a call with today. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. I'll work with Thomas and make sure that the planning commission provides enough time for input.
And can I just say that, for Brett Rudder, we value your insights, inputs, and I'm actually just glad that you're willing to work with the planning commission and try to help them with language. I just want to say thank you for doing that and taking the time. We need more. We really could use more help from citizens who aren't elected or appointed to, to help us with this. Some of this, writing isn't easy, and it takes a lot of time and thought.
Thank you, Chris. All right, sir, if you'd identify yourself.
Yes, I'm John Ray. I live on Shoreline, and the RV issue and the pickup trucks, I own both, okay? So I have a pickup, and often I need to park it in the driveway because I do not have room in my garage. I'm remedying that situation. I'll have that in the garage shortly. But I have a lot of friends that come over, and for the planning commission to come out, and this is all covered in our HOAs, by the way. So as far as the planning commission coming in and ruling that no pickups over 18 feet and excluding any Suburbans or vans or anything else that's the same size as that vehicle. And also many of my friends have pickups. Is that going to, think about this, is this going to be something you're gonna ban overnight or a week, a month? I mean, something to consider about that. And also with my RV, I just moved it. I was over there for about an hour a day, loading it up, and it was on and off the street, okay? I don't keep it over there. I think it's, I don't like those things out there. They're, it's big. You don't want that out in the street. But as far as loading and unloading, I can see that, and I know a lot of my neighbors have RVs, the same thing. They come in, they unload, they put it away. So something for the planning commission to think about. That's my input.
Thank you, sir. I
Yes,
agree
sir.
with you completely.
You bet.
I have a pickup truck. It's 21 feet long.
Yeah, everybody, I mean, we're in
I have an
Utah.
RV.
Everybody has a
I
pickup.
have an RV. It's 32 feet long. I have to
Exactly,
park it- I have to
Phil.
park it on the street when I
Exactly.
load it, so I get it.
Right, yeah, I understand. And,
But I also don't, I would not think about leaving it full-time on my property.
right. Where are you anyway?
Silver Sky,
Okay,
just below Shoreline.
okay.
Yeah, no, we definitely need to figure out a way that people can have their, giant toys and be able to use them, in a way that's considerate enough of the neighbors, right? It's not just loading and unloading the RV. I mean, you take it out of storage, you have to sanitize the water system, there's a lot to do. You might have to be parked in front of your house for 2 days or whatever to get it done, or inside your driveway or whatever. Those are the kinds of things I'd really like the planning commission to think about. Because yes, people do own these things and they're part of our community. Yet we don't want them parked out in the open for any length of time. When I say
Well,
length of time, I mean
Just the RVs? I'm sorry,
Just all-
you talking about
anything.
RVs?
I'm talking about RVs,
Oh, yeah.
more of the classic,
Boats.
the Mayor
Right.
Rubin
20.
size, 40-foot,
Yeah.
whatever, those things. But
Exactly.
But there are lots of different sizes and shapes now. There's those Sprinter vans are everywhere, and they probably don't fit in the garage if they're too tall in some of the garages. So those are things we've got to consider, what the lifestyle is of the folks that live here and such. That's why I think it's important to go back to the planning commission, because it's a complicated issue, a complicated policy.
Well, everything in that you just mentioned is already covered in our HOA.
It is.
So, I don't know.
One of the things that we did discuss previously, John, was, parking of, moving trucks and things like that, which are often there for several hours. And it wasn't about the truck so much, it was about the emergency vehicles. Would they be able to get around any large vehicle on the street? So, you're right, it's in the HOAs. I think that was the only thing previously. We never really thought about the RV scenario.
Right.
What we were thinking about what public safety, so you could get a fire truck in, or you could get, that kind of size vehicle. And we have narrow streets, we're below code in most of our streets. I mean, even Longview is more narrow than.
Exactly.
So anyway, we all should be thinking about, getting those vehicles off the streets for other reasons, so an emergency vehicle can get past.
Well, I agree with you totally. And when you go through this construction down there on Lower Shoreline, oftentimes you have those big vehicles on both sides. I don't think emergency vehicle can get through there.
Yeah, we were talking about that before. I couldn't even drive under it.
So, yeah, and they're restricted, they're not supposed to be parking on both sides. When our guys see them, they make a move. When the police are in town, they make a move. But, the builders, you can't control them. They're like,
Right.
They're everywhere.
And with the snow on the roads too, right now, I mean, I noticed today, I parked my RV over there and I'm going, whoa. I got, a third less room to put my RV to the side, and it would be hard for something to get around it. I never even thought about it till I pulled it up there in front of the snow bank today, but, anyway. I wasn't there very long, but.
Again,
you.
more reason to send it back to planning commission because we just keep talking.
Yeah,
So it's,
Okay.
Okay.
So there's another person who's got their hand up. Dale, you should be able to speak now.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is Dale H. I live on Shoreline, and I wanted to just thank Chris Spire for her comment regarding Brett. I had a friend text me a post that Brett had made, because otherwise I didn't attend the planning commission. I wouldn't have known anything about it. But I listened to the recording of the planning commission. I thought Brett was not only incredibly clear in what he was trying to say, but very professional. And the post that he put out on the Hideout community, or the Jordanelle Community Forum, was very well thought out. And so, I just want to give thanks to Brett for his, feedback to the rest of the community. For those of us who don't regularly listen to planning commission meetings or even listen to town council meetings, like John, who happens to be my neighbor, I own a cargo van, not a recreational van, but a cargo van. It will not fit inside my garage. So oftentimes I park it in my park or my driveway because I need to load it or unload it. Sometimes it stays there overnight, but most of the time it doesn't. But for that to be restricted and say, no, you can't even have that there because it happens to be a particular length. I understand what the planning commission is trying to do here, but the main point of what I wanted to bring up was I just can't compliment Brett enough on the way he not only handled himself, but the write-up that he provided for the rest of the community to be able to understand kind of, hey, this is kind of a bigger point of the issue. I think we all need to take it very seriously.
Thank you, sir. Okay, and as I've mentioned, I'll be following up with Thomas and Tony regarding the concerns about the planning commission separately. Thank you. I don't see any more hands, and so I'm going to close public input. We are doing two things here. We are motioning to adopt an ordinance amending section 12.26.08 on conditional use permit as described in this document. And we are continuing to a date certain the remaining items, the date certain being March 6th, except for item 14, which has to do with the reuse of recreational vehicles, etc., that's being sent back to the planning commission.
And then we're the one noticing, I think it was item 19, 14, regarding the noticing. Does someone want to make a motion to adopt that one little section?
That's what I said, probably is 12.26.08.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
yeah, so moved with what the mayor said. I think he
Thank you,
captured everything.
Chris. I'll second. Thank you, Ralph. Okay, Jonathan.
Yes.
Thank you. Carol,
Yes,
thank you. Bob,
Yes.
thank you. Ralph
Yes.
and Chris,
Yes.
thank you. All right, that ends the public hearing items.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for your good work, by the way, and your dedication. Appreciate it.
We have openings.
Would you like to help?
Maybe we should make a condition of coming to the meeting. We have to sign up for some committee. I know it's late, but these should be relatively quick. If you want to defer the committee updates to next week because they're coming back again, we can do that just to reduce the meeting, although the next meeting might be longer than this one. All right, discussion and consideration of appointing Chase Winder as a new alternate planning commission member. We had three individuals bring their names forward for the planning commission alternate. Tony met with all three. I met with Tony, and he reviewed the three candidates and recommended that Chase be the next alternate. And I support that, having met Chase as well. And so our recommendation, it's an appointed position, but I do need to do it with the agreement of council to have Chase as the alternate.
Mayor, this is Chris. So I'm delighted that there are three people who were interested in one open alternate planning commission seat. So that's fantastic. I'm sure that I'm sure that Chase would be a good addition, having met him at the retreat. So I think again, I'm in full support.
I'm in support as well. I just have one question. Chase, do you live, I don't know if he's even on, is he living in town?
He doesn't have, by our code, he doesn't have to live in town. He has property here, he's building here, but he's not living here.
That's an issue that I have on, the planning commission and the EDC, because they're such sensitive positions. And I've stated this before, even in the EDC, but you're right, it's not in our code. And I do have a problem with someone who's not living in town, because I've seen the downside of that in two situations. So, when is this individual, and I really haven't spent much time with Chase. Sounds like an absolutely terrific person based upon his resume. When is he moving into town?
I don't know the date of his bill. Ralph?
Yeah. So,
Hey, Ralph, I don't think for planning commission it's necessarily required. I know what you mean about the
it's not
EDC.
required.
That is really sensitive, items.
yeah, I would say both of those commissions or committees are the most sensitive. And in my mind, we should have, even if it's not in code, and we wrote it into our kind of bylaws, so to speak, or for the EDC. And I can just say that I've seen two situations where it didn't work very well. So that's my comments. And so all I'm asking is, tell me when you're moving into town, so I can get a better feel for which way I'm going to lean on that. It has nothing to do with the individual, but I've just seen some scenarios that weren't very productive for the town. When it's not, when these sensitive committees
He is,
are not.
he is a landowner.
So are the other folks.
Just a question then for the mayor, since and this is not a reflection on Chase at all. This is just a question. If there was like a non-performing or some issue with an appointed committee, commissioner, what is the process for removal
I'll let Polly answer that. So I don't get it wrong.
I'm just looking up what you have in your ordinance.
But there is language to allow that because we've looked at it.
Yeah,
So-
there is language, for it. Hold on. I don't remember where.
Is that an
here's my-
administrative act or is it a legislative act? It's an
It's
administrative
an
act, right?
appointed role. That one doesn't require legislative, a council member would, but a planning
Yeah.
commissioner would.
Yeah, and Chris, so I know it's not in our code, whether it should be or not, is a different issue. But there's plenty of committees for people who have own homes in town. And again, this is not about Chase at all. This is about the way we do things. But there's, there are the post committee. There's the transportation committee. There's other committees that I think full-time residents can contribute to and that are less sensitive. That's my principle that I feel strongly about. And I didn't feel strongly about this until I saw some other situations occur that caused some issues.
Understood.
Well, as a separate item, if you would like us to look at the code to code change that, we can do that at some other time.
If I could
I'm
point
not
out,
even proposing that. I'm just saying that this is a good point of discussion for us as a council. And to understand where these sensitive roles are and make sure that we, I would want full-time residents of the town to be part of those.
if I could point out that section 2.01.103 says, and I'll quote, "The council may remove any member of the planning commission with or without cause upon written notice," unquote. So I think the authority,
There
if
you
there is
go.
an issue, I think we can deal with it.
There you go, Ralph.
I'm,
If you
I'm
get
sensitive.
three members of the council to agree, you can remove a commissioner.
That's not the way I would go as a business. That's retroactive retribution, so to speak. I think we need to have principles as a town. And this is a strong principle, I think, that, I'm not gonna vary on because I've seen, I've spent time on the planning commission and you do have very sensitive issues. The EDC looks at data that's very sensitive to the town, has discussions. So those are the two areas that I do feel, so I'm not trying to influence anyone's vote. I'm trying to influence our principle as a town.
So I just want to just say one more thing about that, Ralph. What if, let's say, some hotshot graduate of, with a planning degree who doesn't live in this town, but takes an interest in it and wants to serve on the planning commission, if they, have like a landscape architecture degree and they are interested and they're engaged and they're productive, wouldn't we want it, and they may not live here, wouldn't we want somebody like that possibly appointed as one of the commissioners? I
don't agree with that, Chris. They could share their expertise as a consultant to the commission, but the vote, the whole idea on that is you're voting for the town best interest. So no, I don't agree with that, Chris.
But they are a recommending body. They are not a legislative body. So they do, recommend stuff and to the elected officials who
They're
ultimately.
the only other commission that votes. So, and their vote means something. So again, this is not about one individual. This is about our approach and the fact that we're dealing with sensitive issues, from land development to ownership to, how we're collecting money. I just, I feel strongly about that one. So however you all want to vote is fine. Those are, I feel like after 6 years and spending time on both, as well as the EDC, that's my fine, that's the insights that I've garnered out of dealing with it. I think it's a dangerous precedent to have people out of town that aren't full-time residents.
I'm going to support what Ralph's saying. I feel pretty strongly about it too. I think that if you serve on council or on, which I know council, you have to be a resident, but I also think planning commission, you should be a resident.
And the EDC, which we already said we would. be.
Right. Okay.
Those are three sensitive areas.
Right, and I agree.
You know, what I'm hearing is maybe you want to, there are two things going on here, right? You have this individual spot, but you're also really talking about a policy change in your code to consider. At least two council members are interested in examining that. That's something that you could ask the planning commission, or we won't have, when the other thing goes back to the planning commission, they could also discuss changing that section of the code. Actually, it's not in the land use code, but it does seem like something they should weigh in on as well.
Yeah, I'm more than open to having that discussion, but I don't feel that, given the way the code is today, that we should be turning down this individual as an alternate at this time.
So who are the other two individuals? And
Peter-
Do they live in town?
Peter Ginsburg does live in town,
And
and I don't remember the third one.
yeah, so I guess I haven't heard enough on, the comparisons. Again, Chase sounds like an absolutely terrific person. But I've also seen some terrific people on the surface of things in both of those areas that have caused some issues. So, that's my, maybe we do need to make a policy change, Polly. I don't know. And I'd offer that, because I think that's in the best interest of our town. Alicia, you're gonna say something.
I don't know if it helps, and I'm not trying to sway one way or the other, but he does have an active building permit that I can look at right now.
Well, maybe he should be online to just tell me, it's like, if Chase is gonna join the town and he's gonna join it within, he's moving in and, a month, a year, that's too long for me.
May I make a suggestion? Perhaps we just get him on the phone and ask him your question, Ralph. When does he anticipate?
Well, until July, I don't know, I mean, what's the date of the permit?
So I'm just showing that there's a bunch of inspections. This isn't my,
Right.
Kathleen's the expert on this, but I'm looking at the last thing. It says shower pan was passed on
All right, so
Valentine's
they're
Day.
much closer than.
So, I think, where is Chase on?
No, it's not, because this is it. Tony and I made this decision, and I do it with the advice and consent of council. We do not historic planning commission folks up in front of the council like we do potential replacements for council members.
That's right.
Well, in this case, I think if you're living out of town, then that requires a little bit more in depth.
Ralph, I believe I know which house is Chase's. It's pretty far along. I mean, all the exterior's done. I mean, they're working inside, shower pan. So it's not far from being occupied.
Yeah, Chris, it's not about, whether it's 93% done or 95% done. I just think this is bad precedent anyone in that situation could sell tomorrow and not be in town. And then, we're stuck having to remove that person or dealing with it another way. And so I'm trying to avoid that situation. Again, this is not about Chase. This is about the situation and what we've seen before, so.
Well, I brought to you today.
I just want to say, Ralph, I do understand that you've been burned in the past, and that's something, a lesson for all of us to learn. But my point is, I actually, I know you and Carol think planning commissioners should live here, but
Sure.
I would be nice, it'd be nice if they lived here, but I don't, not that limited in, I don't completely agree with that. So and this is also an alternate planning commission member. I suppose they vote vote. I'm not sure when they vote, but maybe when they
vote if they don't have a quorum.
they don't have a quorum, then they're able to vote for that meeting until you'd have a quorum of voting members and the subsequent. So although Peter Ginsburg, I met him too, he's spectacular. So
Yeah.
Right. So that's supposed to have been a hard choice, Mayor, but
Yeah, the things that Tony was looking for, Chase had better background on the things that Tony was looking for.
great. Well, I hope Peter keeps his hat in the ring for the next opening.
Yeah, he wants in for sure.
Right, exactly. But anyway, I just want to say I would give my personally I would give my consent for Chase. If you're looking for my consent.
Yeah.
That's my gating factor.
So I came to you for your consent, and this is what it is tonight. And so I need either yes or a no from each member. So I think I heard Chris say yes. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Chris. But are you supportive?
I did say I give my consent for Chase, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. Ralph.
I'm gonna stand on principle here, and as much as this is not about Chase in my mind, it's about the principle. I think I don't think it serves the town. And so, it's no.
Okay. Bob.
I just,
I'm sorry?
you know what, as long as there's no developers who get into any of these positions who can bend the rules in their favor, frankly, I don't care who's on the committee. If they own property, they're building property, or if they're a full-time resident or a part-time resident, I think that's all okay. Just keep the developers out.
So I'm going to record that as a non-objection to Chase.
Correct.
Thank you. Jonathan.
I'm very sensitive to the issues that Ralph and Carol have raised, and I kind of feel in a similar way. However, this particular applicant, based on the information given to us, not only has a building permit, but it sounds to me, in my limited construction understanding, he's pretty far along. And so while he may not be a resident today, I guess he's going to be a resident soon. And while there's always the chance that he could sell the property, that's true of any one of us at any time. So I'm gonna go down as no objection because he has a building permit and actual construction, which sounds like it's pretty far along.
Thank you. Carol?
I'm gonna stand on principle of we're setting a precedent here. So I'm going to say, I don't know anything about him. But I'm going to say no.
So I have 3 supports and 2 non-supports, which carries a move. Okay. Thank you. Good conversation, good thoughts, Ralph. I think we should,
Let's think about this for the future benefit of the town.
Yep.
So again, congratulations, Chase, wherever you are. I
Right.
love your resume. I know you only come with, let's put it this way.
High praise.
High praise. So, but let's consider this because there's a danger here. And I've seen it and experienced it. So,
it's fine.
Holly, I would, I'm gonna make maybe we do this offline, so we can change the town code eventually.
Well, I think Polly was saying we should probably ask the planning commission how they feel about this idea before we, but doesn't mean we can't change it for them.
At least get their input.
But let's.
So by the way, maybe we should get town input, you know, I mean, is it just us?
Well, we
You
can do
know?
a survey.
Yeah, I
Mhm,
mean,
fine.
maybe the next survey around,
We can do that.
you know, do you want people who live in town to be part of the key commissions? And again, I think there's, you know, I think this is so important that, you know, there's plenty other ways to contribute, at least temporarily, until you do move down. And so that's my view of things.
That's fine, Ralph, Polly, I mean, I don't know, legally, is that something that municipalities can do?
What do, sure, for legislative, all the
No.
public,
No, for us appointed members. Can you restrict the appointed, like a planning commission, can you restrict them to only residents?
absolutely.
Okay, just want to make sure.
And let's look into
Yeah.
that, and making that happen then. for the
Yeah,
future.
and I did look in some other towns and, you know, it varies by the town, you know? We're just in sensitive growth right now that we have to be careful of our choices.
Agreed. Very important.
And Chase, again, I don't know if he's on, congratulations, glad to have you, so to speak, but,
But so is the direction that you're going to do a poll, or are you going to send this to planning commission for their input to give you input for a possible code change?
maybe both.
Both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I just want to remind you of how many residents do we have? 1,100. We don't have a very deep pool of people. Yes, we have talented people here, but it's not a very deep pool. We're not a big municipality where, you know, we can draw from a bunch of people and try to restrict membership to only residents. I mean, it's pretty
We've had
small
three
place, Ralph, and we're lucky.
We had 3 applicants. Yeah, so that's, you know, that's better than what we've had previously. The number of doors, that we're getting are, about 100 a year. 60% are permanent residents, so I think we're at that cusp of a town that we can make these substantive changes or modified changes. So again, don't see it exactly the way you're saying it.
Well, we'll get some input from both the planning commission and the community and see if we want to consider a policy, code change.
And we did get, you know, the survey, we did get how many people who responded to volunteer? Jonathan, was it
I thought it
10?
was 12.
12.
Jan, if you're still with us.
She was on.
Yeah, I think it was 12, as I recall. I could be mistaken, but I think that's the number.
Okay. So item 2 is the fire station, temporary fire station, which I mentioned earlier. That's the only update. Let me go through it again, I will. Item 3, this is pretty much a straightforward, although this isn't in blue, so we're not ready for that? No, okay. That's
No.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, and let me ask you, so that one actually doesn't require public well, I was gonna do it
No.
at our next meeting, but I think I'm going to bring it to you in April, because nothing is between this and the other code changes.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Okay. So 3 is tabled for now. 4, I would like to do, so let me give you a background on this, it's pretty straightforward. There is a section of road in Deer Mountain Boulevard that runs between 248 and the affordable community. That road is maintained by Wasatch County. It has been from the beginning. The town does not include that section of road, that 250 yards or 300 yards or whatever it is. We do not claim that on our B and C road funds. Wasatch County called and said, hey, are you claiming that? And we said, no, it's you guys do the work, so you're entitled to the road tax. And they said, well, we've never gotten it. And I said, well, we haven't gotten it either. So they said, then, since we take care of it, would you mind making it official? And my answer is no. So that I'm not plowing 200 yards of road between 248 and the entrance of Deer Mountain, and then Wasatch County plowing the rest. And so this agreement that Polly worked on with their lawyer, basically, says, so I'll Polly, let you take us through this because you did all the language. So that basically says, okay, we recognize that it's a hideout, it's inside the boundaries of Hideout, but it is being maintained by, Wasatch County.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Mayor, you described it pretty well, and maybe the easiest is if you scroll down, you can see maps at the end that show where it is. But basically, it's an interlocal between them. They're going to maintain the road, and therefore they should get the funding for it. And we should say thank you. And I think it's they've been doing it, so let's have them also, let's formalize that and have them get the road funds.
And you can see in the map that it actually extends beyond the entrance because the town boundary goes up a little bit before it cuts behind the apartments. But they've been maintaining it from the beginning. They're happy to continue to maintain it. It's one less thing for our guys to do. And since we're not collecting any funds for it anyway, it's no real impact to our budget. So that's what we're looking for, approval, a motion to approve, to allow the mayor to sign an interlocal agreement to take care of this particular section of road.
I think this makes eminent sense. I would just have one suggestion. In section E1, under general provisions notice, it says that either party can give notice by US mail. I would suggest that we make that certified mail or overnight mail or some mail that is traceable mail, such that somebody doesn't give notice and the other party never really gets it. And now we've got some confusion. Small thing, but.
So I don't disagree with you. I would just ask for this one. I mean, they're also presenting it to their council, and I'm not quite sure the timing. I'll find out if they've already voted on it. I don't want them to have to go back based on that one issue. I feel pretty confident that we will be able to reach Wasatch County. It's a good point, and we can change that in the future. We can also, electronic mail is also allowed. So I would just ask that if we do change it to have that we give the caveat that if they have already adopted it on their end, that we just leave it as is.
I'm okay with that.
Is there any downside to us doing this other than, sounds like we haven't been getting the money for this anyway, so.
No,
Yeah,
no, and the cost of us doing the work would exceed the cost of the road fund.
It just didn't make eminent sense.
Yeah.
It does.
and
No downside.
is it, do we get any feedback to the folks up there? Except, they probably don't know any different.
They don't know any different.
Yeah.
Plow is plow, to most people.
Yeah.
Whole thing it passed.
So basically, I'm asking for a motion to allow the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement, for road maintenance of Deer Mountain Boulevard between Wasatch County and Hideout Town lines. If possible, to amend, what was that section again, John?
It was section E1, E1 with respect to notice, to add the words certified in front of US mail or overnight traceable courier.
If possible, and it hasn't been done by that county, we can do that. If not, at Polly's request, I'm suggesting we allow this to move forward and we can modify it at some point in the future. So I need somebody to say, I support the motion of the mayor signing this, or not.
So moved.
Thank you. I'll second. Okay, Bob,
Yes.
thank you. Chris,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes,
you, Jonathan,
Yes.
and Ralph.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all for your support on that one. Go back to what's next. So Jan, are you up for your item here, section 5, item 5 there?
Yeah, I'm wondering, given the late distribution, should we just discuss this next week?
We can defer this to next week, that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd appreciate that because I didn't get a chance to read through everything and I would like to read through it all. So thanks, Jan.
yeah.
And there were two sets of docs, right? Here, the one that's included in, and there were some notes, separate notes that we had. Am I correct on that, or maybe I missed, I see the blue, the blue kind of, report. There were some other notes, Jan, that you had?
Yeah, there's a 30-page report by X Factor, and then just a summary sheet that I have titled staff report and follow up. I think, this document deserves a deep dive, or at least a considered reading. So let's just defer it.
Okay. And again, just for council notification, I've asked that X Factor, find a way to be available for one of our meetings to take us through their summary, because they did a lot of work for us, and I think they should present to us, not just hand us a piece of paper.
Agreed, yeah.
So we can ask questions, what they meant by certain terms and so forth.
Make sure we get our money's worth.
Yeah, not only that, they may have some, we could ask some questions about.
Insights.
Yeah, insights, and what other towns are
We're
doing
doing.
with those same reports. We get a report, what have they seen that works, that comes out?
And how is this different than
Yeah.
other things they've done?
Okay. I don't even know who's on at this point.
Mayor, could I, speak to the transportation only because I'm not gonna be here for the next meeting?
Yeah, I'm sorry, we did move the meeting to the 6th of March. I
Right,
think that's still not gonna help you, but
No.
it reduced the number of people who weren't available.
Right, so Alicia, you're aware still that I will be unable to attend.
That's fine. Yes, please, go ahead, Carol.
Okay, I did want to just talk briefly about the transportation committee, and I did attend the listening town hall is what it's called today, even with such short notice. And Caroline Rodriguez spoke about High Valley Transit, and there was a lot of questions. So it was actually quite well attended. There were a couple people from Hideout there. And she talked about the fact that they're going into Wasatch County totally exceeded their expectations. That they have, just with Wasatch County, they already have over 1 million riders. I mean, it's not really 1 million different people, it's, every day, but she said,
Trips.
yeah, just different, they count each person that gets on the bus, gets off the bus, gets on the bus. But the question was asked, when are they going to come up to 248 and address the Jordanelle community? And I was a little perturbed by her answer, which was, well, we're really focusing on Wasatch County and Heber right now. And it might be 5 or 6 years before we come up into this area. And I guess my concern was that it's being funded by taxes. And we're paying those taxes. We're probably paying more taxes because our homes have higher value than a lot of the homes in Heber. But she was pretty adamant that she's not even gonna think about coming up here until 5 or 6 years. So that was, I didn't really go and get into it with her. She's, I know Jan and I met with her maybe a year ago, and she was not very positive about coming into the 248 area or into the Jordanelle area. Down the road, she said yes, that it will be inevitable, but because there's just going to be so much growth here. But it did concern me that she's not coming up. But I will say that I know a lot of people in Hideout have been using Richardson Flat, and they're very happy with it. A lot of people who thought they'd never use it, because they say it's just so easy to go into the resorts.
No, it's direct.
So, right, because it's direct.
It's great.
And so that's been a real plus for us, for the people who want to ski. And I definitely used it during Sundance. I had to go to Old Town Transit Center and then get on another bus, but it still worked. So I hope they continue that. And I'd like to send them a letter of support from, Hideout saying thank you for making it easier for people in Hideout. So.
Hey, Carol, question for you about paying for High Valley Transit. Do you know what the name of their taxing entity is? I mean, are we paying this through our property taxes or sales taxes, or how are we paying?
He didn't say. So both Dustin was there and Luke was there. And, but they didn't really say how exactly what taxes we're paying for it. But, and they do get grants. I'm aware that she has applied for grants and they've got some grants.
Yeah, we've talked to Carl and Luke before. I mean, are they trying to help? It seems like they're trying to help us. But...
Yes, I got the sense that they were pretty, that they were open to comments. Most of the people that were there were from the retreat at Jordanelle. And, I did send the mayor and Alicia and Jan, a note that I was perturbed that we didn't hear about it. I did talk to Luke about it today. And he said that he was very sorry that it didn't get publicized in Hideout. I told him we had a newsletter and I gave him contact information for Carol Custerly. So I said, when you're going to have these meetings and it looks like they're going to be semi-annual, that, you need to give us the information way in advance so we can get it out to the residents.
Yeah.
So.
Could we have something here if we had, another good reason for a community center, I guess, it's something.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have a
You know what, and they did talk about a community center. Actually, both Dustin and Luke said that that they would be willing to put some funding towards a community center up here because they realized they need something. And they asked if I knew anything about Black Rock Hotel, because they did. I actually do know that they've opened up their convention center there, but they're not gonna offer it free, I'm sure.
No,
And so they were very interested in, they said that they did have some funding to work with us to build a community center where, because the retreat at Jordanelle, that little room, their clubhouse, it was pretty jammed. So, but as I said, mostly with retreat people, so. So kind of an update on what happened today.
Thank you, Carol.
So they did talk about the school too, I'll just throw this out, that it's a catch-22. They can't even think about starting a school until they have kids that go to school. And of course, people don't move here with kids because there's no school. So, we talked about that and they said that they would really need to have about 600 minimum children before they would think about building an elementary school up here. And right now, I think Kim was there, she spoke for the school board, she's our representative. And she said that they have about 130 kids, I think from Todd Hollow area that do attend. But there's really no kids in this part of Hideout that attend. So, we've got to bring more people in with little kids and 600 little kids before they even think about a school.
Well, there's a bunch over at Retreat of Jordan now where my daughter lives, and my grandson's there, and he's 7, but he goes to Park City School because she's teaching in Park City. So that's the way she got around that,
Right.
So to speak, but that doesn't scale very well, so to speak.
No. Yeah.
I need teachers.
Well, we talked about that with, the Richardson flat, and we might have
Yeah,
a school
yeah,
there.
we talked about
Well, we're still waiting for that result, so our fingers are crossed.
Yeah,
that we
there
get
was
some
a
kind of
question, like what happened with the lawsuit? And I said, right now, we're still waiting to hear. So,
That's all we can say. Okay, thank you, Carol.
you're welcome.
Great. I guess, I take it you're going for a holiday?
Yes, I am.
Well, good. I hope you enjoy it very much.
Thank you.
Well deserved. You're a busy woman. Does anybody else want to hear about any of these others tonight, or can we put them off for a bit?
We've done so much on the EDC. It would be a disservice to talk about it in this short period of time. It really deserves, we've got presentations we've created, that we've delivered, new documents that we've created. I've got 12 meetings that I've done between last council and this. Can we put some time away for that?
I think we should make a separate session for that. So I'll get Alicia to put a doodle out to see how we can get us together, and then we can. And I don't.
Special meeting?
Yeah, either a special meeting, and if you're ready for public, then we can all do it together. If not, we can do it in pieces. So you gotta figure it out.
Alicia, maybe I can work with you. I don't want to overburden, but I think it's also back to the, what the town needs to accomplish here. This is probably pretty damn critical.
Super critical.
Yeah, so,
and I think it's, make it a one subject meeting. I think it's gonna be pretty interesting.
I agree.
So I think everybody needs to spend some quality time on
Donovan's been spending a lot of time.
it. I think we have to spend some quality time on it. I think it's critical. So I'm okay to find us. So we'll make time for that. We should. It's our job.
Certainly it's important to be good if everybody was up to speed.
I agree.
Yeah. Especially because you're gonna come ask for money. So we want to do that as well. All right. Per Polly, we don't have anything to talk about on the closed executive session because
Well, Mayor, sorry, are we doing committee updates or not?
I just asked if anybody felt they needed to talk tonight versus next week.
I'd just like to talk about the post committee and get it over with because,
Okay.
Who knows, next week there might be more developments, but.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Okay, so the post committee, we had a teleconference on February 13th. It was myself, Carol Hazelton, Thomas, Jan, Kathleen. We also had Brian Cooper, Jason Whitaker from the park, and Nancy O'Toole, who's a grant writer. We talked about grant writing options for some trail development and maintenance that is needed at Jordan Hill State Park. And then subsequently to that, we had a 3:00 Friday, February 23rd walk through at the state park with Don Taylor from MAG. hopefully I didn't leave anybody out on that. Anyway, we are in the process of working with Nancy O'Toole to write a grant. She and Jan have been communicating recently about that. And that's to develop about a 1 mile trail along the road into the park. Some maintenance of the existing trails, including some water damaged areas and areas where we have to put some boardwalks. Potential access points from Hideout and updated signage. So, we made some decisions. Nancy's put together some preliminary numbers, and it looks like, the town will have an obligation to contribute 25% in cash to this effort. So we do have to talk about that when we get to that point, when we figure out what the budget is. But Jan, are you still on?
Yes, I'm on.
I think Nancy had some preliminary numbers. They're not firm yet, right? Because she's still working on
Yes.
it.
Her preliminary number was 15,000, which I think is very, very reasonable.
Well, the question is, do we have 15,000 budgeted for parks, open space, trails in the budget for this? Or it would be for next fiscal year, right, Jan? That we would need that money?
Yes. Yes.
For next fiscal year. Yeah.
There's value added to the Ross Creek area by this, and as we've talked with various developers, they're quite favorable that we have this relationship with the park, and I think it's a really great advancement.
Okay, just so you guys know, yeah, and so that's 25% of the total cost of the project, whatever it ends up being. I mean, there is a budget for the grant application, but the idea is to make sure you ask for enough money, and then if we don't need it all, then the town doesn't have to pay as much either. But there would be cash contribution. There would be the park has a limited amount of cash to contribute as well. There would be in-kind donations of time, and then the other 50%. That would be all the matching that would go with the 50% grant award. So that's in progress, and I think the deadline is sometime, I'm going to say soon, next few weeks. Is that right?
Yes, March.
It's in March. One of
Yes.
the things that we need for this application are some letters of support from the community. So just kind of putting the word out that if anyone in the community would like to write a letter, I believe the application needs 5 of them. I've already volunteered to do one as a council member and a resident, but anyone from the community can write a letter in support of this project. So if you need more information in order to be able to write that letter in support, we do need some additional letters of support for the application. There was
Chris,
also
it would be helpful if you had a little summary of the project and the look for letters, and we'll get it out to the community.
Okay, we can get that together. Yes.
Chris, is it possible for us to do fundraising to offset the town's contribution?
I think Nancy said that we could do that. That portion did have to be cash, whether it's our cash or, cash we raise. I think we can do that.
Okay.
I'm not certain how we collect that money, right? We're a municipality. We're not a nonprofit that can just kind of solicit donations.
We know how to do that.
You can solicit donations. Do you have a special place to hold them?
We
Yeah.
have, yeah.
All right. Then, could do a bake sale or whatever to get some, to help with that, to help offset those costs. But yeah, I'll get a summary together. I'll work with Jan to get that project, and Thomas to get that project summary. There's a map. It's a little bit unwieldy, the map, but there's also, there's kind of some maps going around. But yeah, we can get a summary together just enough to, see if we could get some letters of support. Besides that, while we were out there, we were talking about, winter trail grooming and some other miscellaneous items. No commitments yet, but park manager is interested in winter grooming, whether it's single track, biking, hiking, dog walking grooming, or more of the larger cross-country grooming. I know that they have some challenges with the terrain being rocky in some areas, and other challenges where their groomer is just too big for the single track. But we've got some thoughts and ideas about that, but no commitments yet. And that was I think the summary. There was the other thing, Jan, you remember this, talking about a summer concert. Possible fundraising opportunities could be that summer concert that might actually be able to take place in the park.
Correct.
So yeah, that's another chance to perhaps get some donations.
Yes, and even though Sherry Jacobs is no longer on the council, she has volunteered to continue her services in community engagement, and she is willing to put on the summer concert, which is scheduled for June 15th, and incorporate it as a fundraiser for trails, collaborate on that end. So
yep, great. Any other questions? I know that wasn't the greatest summary, but it's late.
And Jan, come back on.
She's on.
Oh, okay. Anyhow, there was a question after you left today that June 15th is right around Father's Day, and there was some concern, is that a good weekend to have it? For the big ribbon cutting?
The committee looked at alternative dates, and they were aware of the Father's Day, but the next weekend conflicts with Savor the Summit in Park City, and they determined that 6/15 was the best of the possibilities.
Okay.
And Chris, on these letters, do you have any examples that we could, if all the council members submitted something and you've got some additional signatures, would that carry some additional weight on this?
Yes.
What would carry weight so we can maybe show the recipients, that there's a lot of there's a lot of positive feel for what we want to do. So, is there something we all could sign, or, is there individual letters that are going to carry the weight? What's your thoughts?
The requirement is 5 letters. It's so if we have 5 people, it would probably be better if we did 5 separate letters, because then we'll meet the requirement. Ralph, how much weight? I think they're just looking for letters of support. I don't think they scrutinize them that detailed. They just want to make sure that the community is in support of the project, and that would help make the application perhaps stand out over others, when you're competing for funds. I'm not sure how much in terms of funding is available, but I think it's a substantial amount, and we would be asking for, I think we're targeting about $60,000 if we're doing 15,000 of that in a quarter. So it's not a giant project at $60,000 by any means. So hopefully there'd be enough money to go around for all the applicants, but you just never know with these grant deadlines, because you don't know who will apply and if there's going to be enough funding for everybody. So we would just need 5 letters, and then we just need to, for them to stand out so that it's clear to the selection committee that, there's public support for this.
Well, if you had 5 council members who wrote individual letters, that might carry some weight, don't know.
Sure, we'll take them.
Yeah.
I have examples of letters that we provided for the RTP grants back in, I'm going to say 2016. I'll do a quick search and see if they stipulate anything on the grant site, but yes, I could send to the council anyway, or anyone else interested, what perhaps a sample letter or some guidance on what the letters, what we want to include. But I think it's important that you all know what the project actually is, and I did not give a good description of that. Except saying that it was a 1 mile trail and other maintenance.
Sample letter would be great as well. I mean, people are more likely to be able to cut and paste and drop in their three extra thoughts and sign it. Kind of thing. So.
Yeah, so let me get that project, kind of a good summary description of the project, and then a sample letter out, and see if we can turn around some of these around, because I think we only have a couple of weeks. Again, I don't remember what the exact deadline is. I don't know if Carol or Jan or anyone else on the call, Thomas remembers.
There are two different dates, so I don't want to throw out one in case it's the other. So
okay.
It's mid-month though.
All right, Nancy will know. We'll just ask Nancy what's the deadline. And I'll probably get that project description just from her, because she's got to put it in the grant application anyway.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thomas, anything that you want to talk about in DRC? That way we can leave this whole update thing off for next time.
Nope, no, there are no updates. So I made it easy.
Good, thank you. Polly, any changes to your thought that there's nothing new, because they keep deferring our litigation dates, so we don't have any news to tell you, because every time we think we're gonna go talk about something, one side or the other has conflicts and ends up being rescheduled. So we have no real news, other than there are things pending.
Correct. Yeah, it went from beginning of January to, I think we're at March 16th now.
So there we go. Well, with that, if we're willing to consider a motion to close the meeting and call it a night, I'd entertain it.
So moved.
Carol, thank you. Bob, you want a second?
Sure.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
I have to name down, I'm sorry. Ralph? Yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And Carol?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it very much. All but Carol will chat with you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Can I ask, when is the expectation for the packet? Just so that Thomas and I and Alicia can kind of manage our schedule.
Given that we've pretty much looking at the things that are in here already, it should be, I would think, that if you were to issue it on Tuesday, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Because it's all, we're not looking at new content specifically. So that's my thought. I don't know. You guys, can you live with that, given that it's not new content, that we get the packet?
I can't get a packet 24 hours before the meeting, because I can't predict the day of the meeting if I'll have time to look at it, right? So 24 hours is not enough time. 48 hours is definitely better.
I mean, if it was new stuff, I'd say we shouldn't be doing the meeting on the 6th, but we moved the meeting on the 6th to accommodate people being here. So I can't have it both ways. So if we don't, if the 6th is wrong, then let's move the meeting and we'll do it at the end of the month.
Is the packet the same? We're just essentially the same? I thought you were reorganizing.
No content, it's not the same, in that they're gonna reorganize Thomas's letter and clarify a few things and move a few things off. But the basic content is in tonight's package.
Yeah, and I think that we can, I think to Chris's point, I think we can certainly try to aim for Monday night. I think we can make that. That's 48 hours. I know that's not great, but I would say if you do have a moment, take a look at the packet. We'll simply reorder it, make it much more simple to read. But if you can, take a look at that because nothing really changes. We'll get a bit more explanation, repackage it, but I think we can have it by Monday night. Do you think so, Polly? I think for sure we could do that.
Well, the language, the MDA stuff will depend on Nate doing some work and you guys having a chance to see what the planning commission wrote and the concerns. And the technical corrections is the other item for the meeting. And then
Reordering the policy in detail.
yeah,
If you could add some comments on the few areas on the policy.
and then the retreat document, which you'll have a chance to review because it's in here before. So those are the things that would come unless the fee schedule thing comes back, but
Since I missed the beginning of the meeting, could I ask what's going on with Bloom?
they put it on hold. They need time to figure some things out.
So it's not gonna be,
It's not gonna be next
okay.
next week either. They weren't even sure they could be ready for the 14th meeting, and now we moved it back. They definitely won't be ready.
okay.
So it will go to April, and be my guess. And that's, yeah, so those are the things that would be on the item 2 in the public hearing, item 4 in the public hearing. We can do an update on the fire station because we'll have costs and we want to do a kickoff for fundraiser and the retreat update.
Isn't the retreat update dependent on X Factor being available?
Yes, it'll be Jan's call on whether that stays on or moves. But those are the ones that we talked about deferring. So those would be the possible agenda.
And if we need something to fill, we can do the EDC and Ross Creek stuff as well. If not, we can move that off. I mean, yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's up to you, Ralph. If you'd like to put that on for next week and think you can be ready, then we can do that.
We're delivering, so to speak, already, so I would just deliver what we're delivering right now.
That's up to you. You work with Alicia if you think you have something. We're not open on. But you have to give it to these guys in advance to read it.
That's right. Well, most of our stuff is readable right now. There's nothing there, but you know what? I'm gonna take this offline.
Yeah, take it off.
Yeah.
Okay, because
We're done with the meeting.
we agreed to close the meeting.
Exactly.
All right, so Polly, looks like the target is Monday night.
Great, that's useful for us to know.
That's what I would say.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good week.